Chapter 1200. Thank you for your guidance, Master. If you hadn't accepted me as your disciple, I'm afraid I would have been stranded in Jianghu. Shui Tiantian was also very serious and respectful at this time. Yes, although your starting point is very high, but there's also one thing that's not good. There's martial arts internal energy in your meridians, and your cultivation of the Big Dipper magical fist is also wrong. It's not easy to slowly correct it now, I know. I will use great perseverance to overcome these difficulties. If Master can destroy my martial arts cultivation, I'm willing to cultivate again. Shui Tiantian gritted his teeth and said. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she couldn't help but be moved. She clapped her hands and said, You have such great perseverance. You can cultivate successfully. It's just that this method is not reliable. The martial arts meridians and the immortal meridians are the same. Even the Dantian has many cultivation methods that are the same. If I destroy your internal energy, won't you be unable to cultivate the immortal path? Shui Tiantian's face turned red. He lowered his head and said, I'm ignorant, but I'll listen to Master's instructions. Haha, it's fine. With such great perseverance, what can't you achieve in this world? My Beidou school's Worry-Free Heart Sutra cultivates the middle Dantian. It's different from the lower Dantian that you cultivate in martial arts. The two may not conflict. You can cultivate as much as you want. Shui Tiantian's face was filled with joy. He bowed and said, Thank you, Master. Senior brother sect leader, can I do the same? Zhang Pinger asked impatiently. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. However, if you cultivate again from the beginning, it's not as convenient as cultivating through martial arts. Yes, I understand. Zhang Pinger gritted her teeth and said, I'm willing to cultivate again. Haha, it's all up to you. I've also just started cultivating, so I don't know what's best. Zhang Xiaohua said, however, since you've all chosen, don't regret it. No one knows what the future will be like. As long as you put in the effort, you'll definitely reap the rewards. We understand. All the disciples bowed. In the end, Zhang Xiaohua looked at Little Black and Xiaohua, who were sitting obediently on Ji Xiaohua's shoulder and looking at everything in the hall curiously. They glanced at her from time to time and seemed to be a little reluctant and a little scared. She said, These two little things. I learned from the incense cult. I don't even know their background. I only know that their mothers are called Yellow Wind and Black Lightning. When Zhang Pinger heard this, she covered her mouth in shock. These two vicious beasts were known to the disciples of the incense cult. The two of them can be Beidou School's guardian beasts, Zhang Xiaohua said. She was also talking to Little Black and Little Yellow in her mind. How could these two little things know? He looked at Zhang Xiaohua with a puzzled expression. All right, actually, I got most of my cultivation from the Carefree Heart Sutra. This Carefree Heart Sutra is one of the cultivation methods you all can cultivate. As for the cultivation method jade slips in the White Pavilion's hall, as well as the immortal tools and other items, you all can cultivate them. Of course, didn't I just say that the cultivation methods in the White Pavilions are the most basic? With my cultivation, I can only break the restrictions in these pavilions and obtain these cultivation methods. If your cultivation in the Immortal Tao reaches a higher level in the future, you can break the restrictions in the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple pavilions. Then, all of you can cultivate the higher level cultivation methods inside. Think about it. I only have the cultivation method in the White Pavilion. If you all can successfully cultivate the cultivation method in the Purple Pavilion and reach the purple cloud in the center of the throne, then, in this world, who will be a match for you? Her words filled everyone's eyes with hope. They all clenched their fists and looked like they were going to work hard. Right, I forgot that the cultivation of the way of immortality relies on the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth. The Yuan Qi of heaven and earth in the immortal mansion is abundant. However, I need to make a spirit-gathering array for you all to help your cultivation. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and patted her forehead. A spirit-gathering array? What's that? Niet Xianyu asked curiously. All of you, follow me. Zhang Xiaohua stood up and picked up Zhang Byron. With a flick of her sleeve, the scene in front of everyone changed again. Although they were still floating in the air, it was pitch black above them. There was almost no light. "Don't worry. Watch me," Zhang Xiaohua said. She put Zhang Byron down and took out the mansion-guarding spiritual steel. It emitted a hazy light, illuminating the surroundings. This was the place where the phoenix was suppressed in the immortal mansion. Zhang Xiaohua put away the 9 immortal treasures and the mansion-guarding spiritual steel. The wasteland formed by the yuan qi of heaven and earth was also destroyed. There was only some gradually increasing and chaotic yuan qi of heaven and earth left. After taking out the mansion-guarding spiritual steel, Zhang Xiaohua patted the belt around her waist. Countless 5-colored chalcedony flew out from the belt. Zhang Xiaohua closed her eyes and thought for a while. Then, she placed her left hand on the mansion-guarding spiritual steel. She formed another seal and hit the chalcedony one by one. As Zhang Xiaohua inserted the seals, the chalcedony gradually emitted a brilliant light. "Go, after the time it takes to drink a cup of tea." Zhang Xiaohua pointed his finger, and all the blue water chalcedony flew into the air. They were like stars in the night sky, arranged in a mysterious pattern. Then, Zhang Xiaohua did the same thing. She sent the other 4 types of chalcedony into the air. But the more she sent, the longer it took. When the last greenwood-type chalcedony was in the air, Zhang Xiaohua's face was already pale. Zhang Xiaohua took out a primordial stone and replenished the primordial energy in his meridians. Then, he conjured a spell and spat a mouthful of blood onto the mansion-guarding spiritual steel. The spiritual steel exploded with a bang. An array of rainbow light flew out and charged towards the 5 elements spirit-gathering formation that was already set up in midair. "Go." Just as the 7-colored light hit the formation, Zhang Xiaohua pointed her finger and shouted. The 7-colored light immediately exploded like brilliant fireworks, scattering on the 5-colored chalcedony of the 5 elements gathering formation. Hiss! A series of light sounds, as if a fuse had been ignited. The entire 5 elements gathering formation lit up. The chaotic yuan qi in the air was gradually attracted by the formation and projected towards it. Above Yao Mountain, the yuan qi of heaven and earth was also attracted by the immortal abode and guided into the formation. "All right, it's done." Zhang Xiaohua sighed. Looking at the depleted yuan qi in her meridians, she couldn't help but smile bitterly. She relied on her late-stage qi refinement cultivation and the help of the mansion-guarding spiritual steel to barely complete the 5 elements gathering formation. This, the inheritance of a sect, was really difficult. However, for the time being, Zhang Xiaohua's painstaking efforts were unknown. The 5 disciples looked at Zhang Xiaohua, not knowing what he was doing. When Zhang Xiaohua said it was done with a pale face, everyone was also at a loss. Looking at the chalcedony that was as bright as the stars, Nie Qinyu whispered, "Senior brother sect leader, are you creating stars?" Zhang Xiaohua almost fell down. Patting her forehead, she said, "This is the 5 elements gathering formation that I mentioned earlier. In the future, if you want to practice immortal arts, you can practice in this formation. It'll be twice the result with half the effort." "Is that so? Then, thank you, senior brother sect leader." Nie Qinyu looked at the people beside her and bowed. Forget it. When you know the importance of this formation in the future, it won't be too late to thank me." Zhang Xiaohua helplessly waved her hand. Zhang Byron was the one who knew what was good for him. While everyone was talking, he had already run into the 5 elements gathering formation and very comfortably lay down asleep. "Little black, little yellow, you two go too." Zhang Xiaohua looked at the 2 little things standing on Ji Xiaohua's shoulder. They were still a little afraid of her and thought to herself. The 2 little things were stunned, then immediately became happy. They flew over and rolled around in the vitality to play. After a while, Zhang Xiaohua recovered her true qi. She waved her hand and said, "Let's go. I've set up a restriction here. In the future, I'll give you a jade talisman to pass through. When it's time to practice, just come here." As she spoke, she held Byron in her arms. The 2 little things were also afraid. They flew in front of Zhang Xiaohua, but they didn't dare to fly on Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder anymore. Zhang Xiaohua didn't understand why they had such a change. However, they still called her father and mother in their hearts. It was just that they were a little timid. As for Zhang Xiaohua, She didn't know how to ask and could only leave it at that. Returning to the side of the pond, the fine and soft things in the carriage had already been packed. Only the heavy things were waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to start. Zhang Xiaohua didn't delay. She hurried the carriage to the place that Guo Sufei had already chosen and unloaded them one by one. The small building in the immortal mansion didn't have a stove. Guo Sufei and Lu Qian walked around for a long time but still couldn't find it. In the end, they could only ask Zhang Xiaohua if she could build one herself. Zhang Xiaohua naturally didn't have any objections. However, she couldn't use the mansion-guarding spiritual steel to create one out of thin air. She could only rely on Zhang Kai and Zhang Xiaolong to build it up bit by bit. Then, Zhang Kai pulled Zhang Xiaohua to the side and whispered, "Xiaohua, here, can we open up the wasteland for farming?" Zhang Xiaohua stared blankly and laughed. "What's the matter, father? Why did you suddenly think of opening up the wasteland for farming?" "Hee, father has been farming all my life. I'm not used to being idle all of a sudden. Previously, when we lived in the Huanqi Manor, we only ate and drank. We wandered around leisurely and didn't do any farm work at all. I'm really not used to it. Moreover, I've already looked at the back of the building just now. It's all extremely fertile land. If we plant crops, we'll definitely have a bumper harvest. At that time, our immortal mansion definitely won't be lacking in food and drink." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she smiled and said, "Sure, Daddy. The land here is ours. You can do whatever you want. All right, even if you want to raise some chickens and ducks, or feed some pigs and sheep, that's fine too. Just tell me." "That's great. Xiaohua, get 2 cattle first. I'll open up the land first. When spring comes," Zhang Kai said and looked at the sky habitually. Suddenly, he was stunned. "Here, why is there no sun here? How can we plant crops?" Of course, Zhang Xiaohua was delighted when she heard this. There were restrictions in Immortal Mansion. All kinds of wind, thunder, rain, and snow couldn't fall. Moreover, it was daytime every moment. There was no night at all. "Ha ha ha," Zhang Xiaohua laughed and said, "Father, this place is almost like an immortal realm. It's like spring all year round. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect it. Please tip it. Thank you. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian.com to cast a recommendation vote or monthly vote. -4. Chapter 1201. Like spring all year round? Zhang Kai was stunned. He was a native of Lu Town, and his footprints were all within 200 miles of Lu Town. How would he know that Rejuvenation Valley was like spring all year round? Zhang Kai waved his hand and said, "How can it be like spring all year round? There is no way to grow crops. It is only right to have 4 distinct seasons." Zhang Xiaohua did not know whether to laugh or cry. She nodded and said, "Yes, I will listen to you. Wait a moment. Let me see if this mansion-guarding spiritual steel can change the restriction here." Then, Zhang Xiaohua took out the mansion-guarding spiritual steel, put her hand on it, and closed her eyes. After a while, her face lit up and she opened her eyes and said, "Haha, Father, it really works. It is only here. The qi of heaven and earth and other places is very abundant. If the restriction is opened, I am afraid it will be bad for the holy mansion." As she spoke, she flew up into the air. She made a gesture and threw the mansion-guarding spiritual steel into the air. Then, she pointed with her finger. Several rays of light flashed out from the steel and hit the restriction in the air. Then, there was a sizzling sound, like boiling water being poured on snow. The milky white color above the holy mansion was gradually torn apart, revealing the blue sky, as well as the white clouds and the noon sun. Zhang Xiaohua put away the mansion-guarding spiritual steel and landed from the air. She smiled and said, "Is this enough?" Zhang Kai looked at the sky as usual and nodded. "Yes, it is like this. This looks like living on the top of the mountain." "Haha, that's good." Zhang Xiaohua snickered inwardly. He would not open all the seals on the immortal abode. If he did, all the heaven-earth yuan qi in the immortal abode would escape. All he needed to do was make some slight changes to the seal above the white pavilion, turning it transparent. Then, wouldn't the space above the lake, become Zhangkai's? As for the growth of the crops, Zhang Xiaohua didn't care. The immortal abode was full of heaven and earth yuan qi, so what crops wouldn't grow? Following Zhang Kai to the pond, Mr. Liu, Elder Yu, and Zhang Xiaolong had already set up a simple stove and were brewing tea. Seeing Zhang Kai coming over, Mr. Liu said happily, "In-law, quickly come and try it. The lake water here can also be used to brew tea, and it's not much different from the spring water in the Guozhuang house." "Eh, is that so?" Zhang Kai quickly walked over, picked up the teacup, and took a sip. Sure enough, it was as sweet as syrup. He couldn't help but smile indeed. Then he looked at the huge lake and said, "In-law, there's so much water. I'm afraid we won't be able to drink it all in our lifetime." "Hee, not bad. Father, you won't have to worry about not having tea to drink in the future," Lu Qian said with a smile. Zhang Xiaohua also tasted a cup. Sure enough, the lake water was also full of heaven and earth yuan qi. Although it was a little less than the spring water in the Guozhuang house, there wasn't much of a difference in drinking it in the mouth. Everyone sat down and chatted, while Xiaohuaji and the rest played with Zhang Byron at the side. After chatting for a while, Guosufei thought of something. Looking at Zhang Xiaohua, she hesitated for a moment before saying, "Xiaohua, mother, has something to discuss with you." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned for a moment, then she smiled and said, "Mother, this will be our home in the future. If there's anything, please speak your mind." Guosufei smiled and said, "This place is very beautiful. It's 10,000 times better than the Guozhuang house. What is there for mother to be dissatisfied with?" "It's just that." Zhang Xiaohua saw that her mother was a little hesitant, so she said, "Mother, just say it. It's just that, in the Guozhuang house, your grandmother's grave and Xiaohuaji's mother's grave are all behind the original small courtyard. What mother means is that the scenery here is very good. The feng shui must be excellent. If we are lively here, don't let your grandmother and the others miss us in the Guozhuang house. But this is the immortal's mansion. Mother is afraid." "Hee, mother, don't worry. Actually, I've already made up my mind. Once we've settled down, I'll move grandmother's coffins and Ji Xiaohua's mother's coffins here with my eldest brother and second brother. Since you've mentioned it today, I'll go with my eldest brother and second brother. Since we still need to buy cattle, let's do it together." "Xiaohua, mother is just thinking about it. If there is anything inappropriate, just forget it." Guosufei dissuaded. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and replied, "There's nothing inappropriate about it. The forest behind this building is very quiet, and it's not far from us. If you don't allow it, we'll bury Grandma and Auntie's coffins there. Mother and father go and have a look first. I will go with big brother and second brother. We will be back tomorrow." Guosufei quickly said, "Don't be so anxious. Mother just mentioned it first." "How can I be anxious? We have all lived in Huanqi Mountain Villa for a long time. Grandmother must have been lonely for a long time. The sooner they are sent here, the sooner they will be happy." Zhang Xiaohua stood up and said, "Let's go, big brother and second brother. Let's go and pick up grandmother." "I will go too." Zhang Kai stood up and said, "There are rules when coffins are moved out. How do you know this?" "Oh, that's fine." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and asked Zhang Xiaolong and Zhang Xiaohu to prepare 2 carriages. Then, Zhang Xiaohua and the other 3 said goodbye to everyone and took the 2 carriages down Yao Mountain. They didn't come back until noon of the 3rd day. In the 2 carriages were the coffins of grandmother and Xiaohua's mother. Zhang Xiaohua had already cast a spell on the coffins. There were also a few sturdy-looking cattle accompanying them. In these 2 days, Guosufei had already found the place to bury the coffins. Zhang Xiaohua and the others also came back with daily hoes and other tools. It didn't take long for the graves to be ready. Everyone followed the rules, burned incense, and kowtowed. They buried the 2 coffins again and cultivated the soil. Then, Zhang Kai was focused on organizing the land and preparing to cultivate. This time, when he went down the mountain to buy cattle, he also bought a lot of seeds. He wanted to do a big job. Zhang Xiaohu had left the Misty School for several days. It was time to go back. Zhang Xiaohua sent Zhang Xiaohu, Chang'e, and Chunxin down the mountain. Zhang Xiaohu still held Zhang Xiaohua and said, "It's exactly 1 month before the 14th day of the first lunar month. You, don't forget it." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, I won't. Yao Mountain is very close to Wuzhua Peak. When the time comes, you come here first and I will go with you." Then, she took out a jade talisman from her arms and said, "Take this jade talisman. When you get here, just inject your true qi." "Well, okay." Zhang Xiaohu took it and put it in his arms. Then, he said, "By the way, if young Master Li, Chu Jing, and the others come back, what should I do? Just send Chu Jing here?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "I have 2 sisters-in-law. Can't you let young Master Li meet Sister Qiu Tong? Send someone to follow young Master Li to bury Miss May's coffin and send them here. If you can't come, give this jade talisman to young Master Li." "Oh no, Chu Zhigao has the jade talisman I gave him. Ask him to come to Yao Mountain and crush the jade talisman. I will know." Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua had arranged it well, Zhang Xiaohu didn't say anything. He turned over and unloaded the horse from the carriage. The 3 of them said goodbye to Zhang Xiaohua and went straight back to the Misty School. Sure enough, half a month later, Li Jinfeng and the others came back. After reporting to their families that they were safe and buried Miss May's coffin, they went to Yao Mountain Immortal Mansion. Seeing such a beautiful and fairy-like scene, they were stunned for a long time before they came to their senses. At this time, by the lakeside, Zhang Kai and Zhang Xiaolong had already tidied up a few plots of land. Some different seeds had already been sown, and the stove for cooking was also prepared. However, due to the large number of people, it was very troublesome to prepare the food. Seeing Li Jinfeng's weary face and hearing Li Jinfeng's story, Qiu Tong, who was very interested in Li Jinfeng, felt her face burning. She hid beside O Yin and didn't talk to Li Jinfeng directly. Li Jinfeng didn't know that Qiu Tong's attitude towards him had changed. First, he sighed. After listening to Zhang Xiaohua's explanation, he was overjoyed. However, when he saw Qiu Tong, he became silent again. He wasn't as calm and composed as he was in front of Mei Qinglian. Zhang Xiaohua was secretly observing from the side. She saw that the 2 of them wanted to say something, but they were shy and did not say anything. They were also thinking about each other. They often glanced at each other and then pretended not to notice. Then, they would glance at each other and then look away. It was like the feelings of a teenage couple. Zhang Xiaohua found it very funny, but when he thought of the sweet and distant relationship between her and him, Zhang Xiaohua missed the dream of being together with him in dire straits. I wonder, how is the discussion between the 3 immortal Dao sects, the Alliance of Righteous Dao, and the other sects of the pugilistic world? Will they attack the Tenryu sect? Zhang Xiaohua was very curious. The 3 immortal Dao sects and the Alliance of Righteous Dao were not as relaxed as Zhang Xiaohua. They were going to attack the Tenryu sect on a whim. They had lost many people in the fight for the Yaoshan Immortal Abode. Even the seniors of the immortal Dao sects were seriously injured. The 3 immortal Dao sects, the Alliance of Righteous Dao, and a few other large sects had discussed for 2 days at the foot of Yaoshan Mountain. They all felt that although the Heavenly King of the Tenryu sect had been seriously injured, the disciples below the Heavenly King level had not suffered any casualties. On the other hand, the various sects at the foot of Yaoshan Mountain had lost many high-ranking disciples and ordinary disciples. The strength of the various sects had decreased greatly. If they were to fight against the disciples of the Tenryu sect, they would not have much chance of winning. The most important thing was that although everyone suspected that the Tenryu sect had set up a trap, there was no evidence at all. Other than the Beidou School's headmaster who saw some black flags, even the Dalan Temple's master Tiangang did not see anything. Since there was no justification for the attack, everyone's suspicions died down. In the past 2 days, many disciples from various sects had left, so there was no news of the tragedy. Therefore, Alliance Master Zhang San of the Alliance of Righteous Dao proposed that the various sects send their elite disciples to the Tenryu sect to investigate carefully to see if there were any clues left behind by the Tenryu sect. The various sects would return to their respective sects to recuperate and restore their strength. They would discuss the details after they found the Tenryu sect's flaws. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip me. Thank you. -4. Chapter 1202. Zhang Xiaohua's Beidou School was newly built and only had a few junior sisters and disciples. It was still far from being a big school, so of course, She didn't know about the news in Jianghu. While she trained her disciples, she also hoped that the various sects in Jianghu would work together to attack the Tenryu sect. Back to the Yaoshan immortal abode, Zhang Xiaohua used the immortal's guardian spirit steel to set up a spirit gathering array in the palace where the phoenix had undergone nirvana. It gathered the qi of heaven and earth drifting within the immortal abode, as well as the qi of heaven and earth in the air above Yaoshan. The concentration of qi of heaven and earth in the palace increased by the day. A month's time wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. For the Misty school, it was just a short period of recuperation and preparation. But for the Beidou school, this month's time was absolutely crucial. It was an earth-shattering change. For the people of Jianghu, the path of immortality was an ethereal and wonderful hope. There was an insurmountable gap between the path of martial arts and the path of immortality. In order to overcome this gap, the various sects in Jianghu racked their brains to find a smooth path to the path of immortality. The path of immortality's incense sect, the Dalan Temple, and the Alliance of Righteousness's path of martial arts set aside their personal grudges and joined hands to prepare a secret location, hoping to find a way to inherit the path of immortality in the secret location. All of this was because of the qi of heaven and earth. The lack of qi of heaven and earth was the main culprit behind the path of immortality 10,000 years ago. With the support of Zhang Xiaohua's spirit gathering array and the gradual recovery of qi of heaven and earth, the Beidou school of Yaoshan Immortal Abode seized the opportunity to rise to the top of the path of immortality. Especially with the discovery of the Peiyuan pill, it was like Zhang Xiaohu's Dantian had Yang Haoya's True Yuan. It allowed the Beidou school's disciples to have their first strand of true qi in their dantians when they first started cultivating the Carefree Sutra. They were also able to sense qi of heaven and earth at the first moment. What was difficult for others to draw qi into their bodies was too easy for them. Could it be that, in ancient times, stepping into the path of immortality was an extremely simple matter? Or is it that the 6 disciples of my Beidou school are all rare talents? Zhang Xiaohua looked at the disciples sitting cross-legged under the spirit-gathering array. She pinched the beard that had grown out of their chins and fell into deep thought. Under the 5 elements spirit-gathering array, Zhang Xiaohua's disciples, with the exception of Zhang Byron who was still lying down and sleeping, were all sitting cross-legged, pretending to be serious in their cultivation. Nie Qinyu was the first disciple Zhang Xiaohua had taught the first level of the Carefree Sutra. Nie Qinyu had already started cultivating diligently when Zhang Xiaohua was spreading the scourge of the incense cult. However, the qi of heaven and earth in Rejuvenation Valley was still limited. Although Nie Qinyu could sense qi of heaven and earth, the amount of qi that she could draw into her body was still very small. She was far from being able to refine it into true qi. Under the spirit-gathering array, there was sufficient qi of heaven and earth to draw in. In addition, there was also a strand of true qi formed by the Peiyuan pill in her dantian. Under such circumstances, Nie Qinyu could easily draw the qi of heaven and earth into her body and refine it into her first strand of true qi. Before this, Zhang Xiaohua had also given Nie Qinyu a meridian-nourishing pill, which had perfectly refined Nie Qinyu's meridians. This was like adding wings to a tiger. Nie Qinyu had become the first disciple of Beidou school to set foot on the immortal Tao, and this had only taken Nie Qinyu 2 days. The second disciple to set foot on the immortal Tao had exceeded Zhang Xiaohua's expectations. Zhang Xiaohua had originally thought that this person would be Shui Teng. Unexpectedly, the ordinary-looking Ji Xiaohua, who had never practiced martial arts, had never come into contact with internal energy, and had never been placed with high hopes, had set foot on the immortal Tao 15 days later than Nie Qinyu and 3 days earlier than Shui Teng. This made Zhang Xiaohua go wild with joy. After all, this was still someone named Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua was happy to think that he could achieve such an achievement. Seeing that Ji Xiaohua, who had no foundation in martial arts, had set foot on the immortal Tao 1 step earlier than her, Shui Tian, who had always wanted to compete with Ji Xiaohua for the position of senior brother, became even more determined. However, it still took him 20 days to form his first strand of true qi in his dantian. In comparison, Chu Jing was neither hot nor cold. He set foot on the immortal Tao on the 22nd day. When Chu Zhigao and Chu Jing's grandmother learned of this, they ran to a corner of the lake, drew a small circle, burned some paper, and kowtowed with tears streaming down their faces, as if to comfort the ancestors of the Chu family in the immortal Tao. After the young disciples set foot on the immortal Tao, Yin and Zhang Pinger showed no signs of breaking through for the time being. After another 5 days, on the 27th day, Yin, who had no foundation in martial arts, set foot on the immortal Tao before Zhang Pinger. Zhang Pinger took 29 days to form her first strand of true qi in her dantian. Zhang Xiaohua thought of his discerning eyes and the fact that his disciples were all peerless talents. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but feel proud. If he knew that Peacock, Chen Shun, and Yuan only had 18 days to stay in the inheritance palace of the incense cult, and that the three of them also set foot on the path of immortality within the time limit, what would he think? According to the rules of the incense cult, among these 6 disciples, only Nie Qinyu and Ji Xiaohua could be considered to have truly inherited the incense cult, and the other 4 were going to be eliminated? And Beidou School's spirit gathering array and incense cult's spirit gathering array was much stronger? From this, one could see how important the immortal mansion was to the 3 immortal Dao sections. One could also understand why Master Tiangang, Reverend Shu Qing, and Reverend Hao Yun would risk their lives in order to seize the immortal mansion into their own hands. If the immortal mansion was in the hands of the incense cult, wouldn't they be able to create many immortal Dao disciples in a short period of time? How could Reverend Jingyi be worried about her own inheritance? As for the incense cult, Misty School, and Xindao sect, the origin of the 3 immortal Dao sects, what about the secret plane? If the incense cult lost the Yaoshan immortal mansion, how could they not put all their energy into it? Just as Zhang Xiaohua was happily watching the 6 disciples under the spirit gathering array absorb the spirit gathering array into their bodies, and Zhang Byron was sleeping soundly. The world's spirit gathering array was gradually being absorbed along with his breathing, and Little Black and Little Yellow were also using a strange posture beside him. The world's spirit gathering array was slowly being inhaled and exhaled by the 2 little things. In the Nanjiao town, which was hundreds of miles away from the secret plane, in the courtyard of a big family, Reverend Jingyi was sitting in a rather large central room, talking to Reverend Shu Qing, Reverend Shuezhen, Peacock, Qin Shun, and Yu Yin. Reverend Jingyi frowned slightly and whispered, "Yaoshan, immortal mansion. Has there been no movement?" Reporting to the sect leader, since the day Ren Xiaoyao took back the steps to immortal mansion, they haven't been put down, and no one has come down from Yaoshan. Reverend Shuezhen cupped her hands and said, "Huh, that guy is actually practicing in seclusion?" Qin Shun cried, "Not necessarily." Reverend Jingyi shook her head and said, "Every time the steps to immortal mansion are used, the amount of world spirit gathering array is enormous. I think, if Ren Xiaoyao wants to enter and leave immortal mansion, there must be another simple way. It's just that, as for what method, it's not something we can recklessly guess." Sect leader, didn't Ren Xiaoyao warn us? Don't leave anyone near Yaoshan. If we eat the disciples of the incense cult and investigate nearby, I'm afraid we'll provoke him and make him unhappy. Peacock said worriedly, "Hee, it's not just the disciples of the incense cult who aren't afraid. The Dalan Temple, between the clouds and the water, and the Righteous Alliance, which one of them didn't send spies?" Reverend Jingyi waved her hand and said with a smile, "Even if Ren Xiaoyao finds out, we can just say that this disciple is a registered disciple of the incense cult. When he finds out, she has already been expelled from the cult. What she did at Yaoshan is her own behavior. It has nothing to do with the incense cult." Hee, sect leader is wise. Qin Shin heard this and laughed. That guy will have nothing to say. Forget it. Let's not talk about Yaoshan and Beidou School anymore. We were at Yaoshan. We were so angry. We tore our faces apart, and we even sacrificed Junior Shu Jie's life, but we still didn't gain any advantage. Instead, some nameless guy got ahead of us. I really don't know how he managed to control the entire immortal mansion. Reverend Shu Qing waved her hand and said, "That guy is the best at stepping on dog shit." Qin Shun concluded, "Oh right, Junior Shuezhen, is there any news from the Dalan Temple?" Sect leader, ever since the monks of the Dalan Temple entered Baozhen, we couldn't find any trace of them. Our disciples didn't dare to go too deep, and after 10 days of investigation, we still couldn't find any news. Hee, It's not a big deal. Who would have thought that the disciples of the incense cult have already returned to Dianchi Lake, and we can still stay in Nanjiao Town? We'll just wait until tomorrow night, and the Dalan Temple will appear at Wuzhua Peak on time. Sect leader is wise, hiding in the city. That's right, I was thinking of finding a remote mountain village to settle down. What about the Righteous Alliance? Reverend Jingyi asked with a smile. The evil tiger gang in this area seems to be a small branch of the Righteous Alliance. Wouldn't Alliance leader Zhang San be like a fish in water here? He's long gone. Reverend Shuezhen laughed. Then, Misty School. What's Zhang Xiaohu doing? Sect leader, there's something strange about the Misty School. Reverend Shuezhen looked confused. I've sent disciples to inform Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng, but both of them said they were busy with internal affairs and couldn't come in person. That's fine. I have some spies among the disciples of Wuming Hall, but they also disappeared without a trace. There's no news at all. It's really strange. Then, what about the immortal senior from the Misty School? Is there any news? No. My disciples didn't find anything useful. If it wasn't for my scruples, when we were in the secluded ground, I would have captured Li Jian and the others and asked them what had happened to the ethereal sect. Please don't. Reverend Jingyi hurriedly waved her hand and said, to be able to restore the internal strength of Li Jian and thousands of other Misty School disciples. I'm afraid that even Master Tiangang of the Dalan Temple can't compare to this level of cultivation. At this juncture, we'd better hide. -4. Chapter 1203. Leader, it's strange. Since the Misty School has such a senior immortal, why didn't he do anything when the Misty School was destroyed? Even this Yaoshan immortal abode. He didn't appear? Could it be that he doesn't care about the Yaoshan immortal abode? Shuqing Nun was surprised. This? Who knows? Nun Jingyi smiled bitterly. No matter whether he appeared or not, wouldn't Ren Xiaoyao have taken advantage of him in the end? If I knew this would happen, I would have let Shi Mujuan stab him to death on Lingxiang Peak. I'm afraid. Shi Mujuan is no match for Ren Xiaoyao. Peacock reminded her in a low voice. Isn't that so? Nun Jingyi gritted her teeth at the mention of this matter. Of all my calculations, I never thought that senior martial sister Jing Gang, Shi Mujuan and Yu Zhuochuan were killed by this bastard. Sigh, it's not just leader. Although Elder Jing Gang and her 2 disciples have grudges against Ren Xiaoyao, but when it happened, he always had an alibi. We were all confused by his strength and thought that he was just a brute with great strength. Who would have thought that he was a man of immortality? Suddenly, Nun Jingyi seemed to have thought of something. Her expression was very interesting. Shuqing Nun noticed it and asked curiously, Leader? You. What did you think of? Grand Elder. I suddenly thought, is Ren Xiaoyao the person who has a deep connection with the Misty School? Peacock and Chunshin exclaimed and blurted out, No? No way. Shuqing Nun also shook her head slightly. I think it's impossible to. Nun Jingyi thought for a moment and said, Ren Xiaoyao came from Rejuvenation Valley with Peacock. Ever since Ren Xiaoyao came, how many things have happened in my sect? The sudden change in Twilight Orchid, the death of Grand Elder Jinggang, the tremor in Mount Juhua, the collapse of the sect-protecting formation. Yes, there were also the thousands of Misty School disciples at Serene Peak recovering their martial arts. I wouldn't have dared to think about these things in the past, but they all happened in the short span of a few months. I don't believe that it has nothing to do with Ren Xiaoyao. Jingyi, every single one of the things you've mentioned is shocking and can't be done without great magical powers. According to what I know, the sudden change in the Orchid Dusk refinement, the shaking of Mount Jihua, and the collapse of the sect-protecting formation are all natural disasters. I'm afraid only immortals can do these kinds of things related to heaven and earth. As for the other 2, they might be Ren Xiaoyao's doing. Shuqing Nun nodded. Leader, I think Ren Xiaoyao has only been at Serene Peak for a little more than 2 months. To recover the martial arts of thousands of Misty School disciples, I don't think he has that much time. Peacock thought for a moment and said, Also, who knows if the martial arts of the Misty School disciples were recovered at Serene Peak or after they left Dianchi Lake. Chunshin also added, Actually, Leader, Swift said softly. Whether Ren Xiaoyao is an immortal or not, that's another matter. Didn't you hear what Alliance leader Zhang San said? Ren Xiaoyao is only a martial artist. It's because he obtained the immortal mansion that he has so many magical powers. Jingyi Nun pondered for a moment and shook her head. If Ren Xiaoyao killed Great Elder Jinggang, all of this can be easily explained. If it wasn't him, then it's even more confusing. Many things can't be explained. But if Ren Xiaoyao is only a martial artist, and he borrowed the power of the immortal mansion, then what we saw in the immortal mansion can be explained. Sigh, let's not talk about it. Even if Ren Xiaoyao is the real culprit, we can't do anything if he hides in the immortal mansion of Mount Yaoshan. Leader is right. Master Jingxian's death is as confusing as Master Jinggang's death. At that time, Ren Xiaoyao hadn't come to our incense cult. It's not good to blame Ren Xiaoyao. Peacock agreed. Everything depends on strength. Let's first deal with the matter of the secret plane. If we can find the method of inheritance in the secret plane this year, our incense cult will be able to cultivate more immortal disciples. In a few years, not only our incense cult, but also the Dalan Temple, Misty School, and even the Alliance of Righteous Path will have many immortal disciples. At that time, we'll be able to raise our voices and verify this matter with Ren Xiaoyao. Jingyi Nun said coldly, Misty School's Zhang Xiaohu. Has he left for the Five-Claw Peak? Leader, 5 days ago, I sent a disciple to Ethereal Heights to urge Zhang Xiaohu. I think he won't delay the gathering tomorrow. Of course, the secret plane is a great temptation for the 4 immortal sections. Zhang Xiaohu has no reason not to be tempted. Moreover, this is also a promise from him. Abish Jingyi suddenly thought of something and turned to ask, That's right. Where's Bai Yinqiu from Shuiyun Club? She's a very ambitious woman. About the secret plane, we have to be careful of her. Leader, Bai Yinqiu went all the way south. After walking for 100 miles, she disappeared. I can't tell. Hehe, since there is no trace of them, that is extremely normal. If we let our disciples see their traces all the time, it would be more conspicuous if we tried to cover it up. Abish Jingyi laughed and said, Only Changxing Dashi, Zhang San, Alliance leader Zhang San, and our cult were conspiring about the secret plane. Even Zhang Xiaohu only found out about it a month ago. Even if Bai Yinqiu's magical power is extensive, she definitely wouldn't know that after we left Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, we immediately made our move at Five-Claw Peak. She must have hurried back with Immortal Hao Yun to heal. Yes, if Qinshin didn't get the 9-heaven Black Lotus Seed in Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, my injury wouldn't have healed as fast as us. Immortal Hao Yun and the others must still be worried about their injuries. Shuqing Nun said with a smile. That's right. In this way, apart from Beidou School, my fragrance cult has benefited the most from Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. Jingyi Nun smiled and said, In addition to the Heaven and Earth Handkerchief, the 9-heaven Black Lotus Seed, 2 flying swords, several magic weapons, and even 3 immortal cultivation methods. Yes, leader, this Ren Xiaoyao is definitely not a heartless person. Otherwise, he would never let us take these things away. Peacock nodded and said, Sigh, even if that's the case, senior sister, think about it again. In this Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, how many good things would there be? Qin Chun was quite envious. This guy is really lucky. No matter how many treasures there are, they're still his. What's there to be envious about? Peacock glared at her. That guy. Chun Chun narrowed her eyes and clenched her teeth tightly. It was as if she wanted to bite off more things from that guy in her heart. In the distant Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, that guy in Chun Chin's heart had already been bitten into 70 or 80 pieces. At this time, he was teaching Nie Qinyu some formation problems. To be honest, as a master, he was not very competent. Other than providing some cultivation methods, some elixirs, some cultivation experience, and some formation arrangements, he could not explain the other details of cultivation, things to pay attention to, and so on. After all, Zhang Xiaohua's method of cultivating the Carefree Sutra was rather strange. Who in this world would dare to try it? Even Zhang Bairan would not dare. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua knew his own situation. From the beginning, he had planned to let each disciple walk on their own path of cultivation. As the master, he only gave a little guidance. In this way, these 7 disciples would have 7 different paths? Fortunately, other than the Carefree Sutra and the orthodoxy of Fire Dragon Immortal, there were also many cultivation methods in the White Attic. They were not inferior to the inheritance of the Misty School. In addition to the red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple attic, there were also cultivation methods and artifacts that Zhang Xiaohua did not have the ability to obtain. This Beidou school's disciples could be said to have unlimited room for development and unlimited potential. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua, who was demonstrating the incantation to Nie Qianyu, felt his heart throbbing. It was as if there were countless invisible hands grasping his heart tightly and squeezing it into countless tiny pieces. Zhang Xiaohua was caught off guard. He screamed and fell into the void unknowingly. Senior brother sect leader, Nie Qianyu was anxious. Just as she was about to go forward, she saw the pale-faced Zhang Xiaohua quickly fly up again. His eyes were full of fear, and his forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. He looked around in panic. Master! The disciples who were cultivating nearby were also awakened and ran over. All right, it's all right. Zhang Xiaohua straightened his body and took a deep breath. He waved his hand and said, I'm all right. You all can leave for now. Yes, Master. After hearing this, the disciples hesitated for a while and left. Byron and the 2 little ones also left. After everyone left, Zhang Xiaohua flew to the spirit-gathering array and sat down cross-legged. He closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. The sudden throbbing just now was very short. When Nie Qianyu cried out, the throbbing had already disappeared without a trace. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua stretched out his hands. The fingers on his left and right hands constantly moved, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, from simple to complex, and finally almost mysterious. Zhang Xiaohua's body gradually formed a faint shadow. The shadow was like a glimmer of light, gradually becoming clear. Looking at the gradually forming outline, it was really Zhang Xiaohua's Sky Dao Starry Sky, the increasingly clear hand of karma. And the movement of Zhang Xiaohua's technique was exactly the way of karma that he had been comprehending recently. With a loud bang, just when the hand of karma had a certain degree of outline, Zhang Xiaohua's heart moved again. He could no longer control the qi between his fingers. Zhang Xiaohua had no choice but to withdraw his hands. The hand of light and shadow around him suddenly collapsed. Then, Zhang Xiaohua spat out a small mouthful of blood. His face was full of dispiritedness. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and sat cross-legged. He looked up at the spirit-gathering array that was not very rich in the qi of heaven and earth. He took out a small yuan stone from his arms and adjusted his breathing. After an unknown period of time, a faint brilliance appeared from the void and flew to Zhang Xiaohua. It stopped in front of Zhang Xiaohua and stopped moving. Please vote monthly, please vote recommendation, please collect, please tip, thank you. -4. Chapter 1204. Zhang Xiaohua opened her eyes and pinched the light with her hand. She scanned it with her divine sense and couldn't help but smile. What's wrong? It's already the 14th of the first lunar month? Alas, it's true. A few days ago, Mother and Father were still decorating the small building with lanterns and decorations, saying that it's the new year. This time, it's really fast. Second brother, wait a moment. I'll be there in a while. As Zhang Xiaohua spoke, she patted the light, and it flew away with a whoosh and disappeared. Alas, I really don't know what happened just now. Zhang Xiaohua stood up and thought to herself, I've never encountered such a situation before. The Karma Hand's incantation is really profound. I thought that with my cultivation in the late stage of qi refining, even if I can't comprehend half of it, I should be able to complete the incantation. At least, I should be able to understand where this throbbing came from. But I didn't expect that. Not only did I not complete the incantation, but I also suffered a backlash. If it wasn't for my shallow understanding of the Karma Hand, I'm afraid that I would have been seriously injured. Zhang Xiaohua thought and walked out of the round palace. Nie Qianyu and the others didn't leave. They just stayed outside and waited. When they saw Zhang Xiaohua come out, they all looked worried and went forward to ask, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Master is fine. It's just that there are some things that I don't understand. You don't have to worry. Then, she looked outside and said, You all can continue to cultivate like before. Master will go out for a while. I'll be back in 2 days. Okay, Master, be careful. Senior brother sect leader, be careful. Everyone bowed respectfully and flew back into the palace to continue cultivating. Seeing Little Black and Little Yellow, Zhang Xiaohua's heart moved. She wanted to call the two little things, but on second thought, the two little things looked very similar to their mother. Nun Jing-yi and Nun Shu-qing would definitely recognize them. If they misunderstood, the orchid and mullein were thousands of lives. Even if she had 100 mouths, she wouldn't be able to clear her name. Little Black and Little Yellow. It was better not to bring them along. Little Yellow and Little Black seemed to have felt it as well. They paused in midair and turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand, and they followed the crowd into the palace. The Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi and the Spirit Gathering Array was exactly what they liked. They would not be happy if they did not stay in there for a while longer. When Zhang Xiaohua appeared in front of Zhang Xiaohu and the others, everyone except Zhang Xiaohu was stunned. They immediately bowed and said, Congratulations on the establishment of Beidou School. Greetings, Headmaster Zhang. When Zhang Xiaohua saw this, she was slightly stunned. Then, she flicked her sleeves and helped everyone up. She smiled and said, We're all old acquaintances. There's no need to be so courteous. What surprised Zhang Xiaohua was that in addition to Zhang Xiaohu, there were also Hu Yuni, Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, Wen Wenhai, Lu Yuiming, Shueqing, Ant Qin, Changge, Chun Shun, and others at the foot of Yaoshan Mountain. Second brother, are you all going to the secret plane? Since all of you are here, what about ethereal heights? Zhang Xiaohua asked in surprise. Haha, of course we're going to the secret plane, but not all of us are going. It's still early now. We hid our whereabouts all the way and came here in several directions. Naturally, there are some things we need to discuss with Beidou School. Beidou School? Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua looked at the sky and nodded. It's almost noon now. There's still some time before evening. Come on, please come to the palace for a chat. With that, she threw out the cross-shaped magic instrument and called everyone to come into the light circle. With a flash of light, everyone came to the Lingxiao Palace. Needless to say, the people of Misty School only woke up from the shock after a long time. Their eyes were filled with eagerness and awe. They looked at Zhang Xiaohua with more respect. Zhang Xiaohua sat on the central throne and smiled in a low voice. Everyone, the position in the Lingxiao Palace is determined by the profound cultivation. It's not that I don't want you to come close. Please forgive me. Hee, sect leader Zhang. Although your sect did not deliberately publicize the matter of the Yaoshan immortal abode, the unimaginable abnormality has long been spread among the disciples of various sections. The name of the Lingxiao Palace is also strange. My ethereal sect has already received the news from the pugilistic world. If we can all get close to the central throne, I'm afraid this immortal mansion would have been controlled by the Dalan Temple and the Xiangxiang cult. Hu Yuni bowed and smiled. Yes, Elder Hu is right. I didn't mean to be rude. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, Oh right, Elder Hu, I wonder, does your Misty School have anything to discuss with my Beidou School? Hu Yuni turned around and glanced at Zhang Xiaohu. Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, Elder Hu, Xiaohua is this seat's blood brother. If it's related to this seat, then there's naturally no need for you to step forward. This seat only needs to talk to him. But if it's something related to the Misty School, Xiaohua has already helped my Misty School a lot. My Misty School? Ahem, to be honest, I can't repay him. So, it's not easy for me to talk about the matters between the Misty School and Beidou School. Haha, Master Zhang, my big sect leader means, if he asks, I'm afraid you won't agree to everything. If you were alone in the past, we would have just talked about it. But now you're the master of Beidou School and you have disciples. Your first consideration should be the Beidou School's interests. So, it's better for us to talk to you. Li Jian said with a smile. That's right. I also feel that Master Zhang is too good to my Misty School. If I can't be intimate with Beidou School in the future, I'll be really unhappy. Lu Qingyang didn't dare to speak loudly. I see. Zhang Xiaohua patted his head and thought, Maybe I should change my attitude. I can't just be a little brother who helps others. So, he nodded and said, the two elders are right. Since you all represent the Misty School, then I should also consider myself as a member of Beidou School and not treat myself as Zhang Xiaohu's brother. Haha, that's right. In the Jianghu, brotherhood is precious, but compared to the inheritance of a sect, a person's life is too short. We should still put the interests of the sect first. When Wenhai also nodded and said, yes, I underestimated you. Thank you for your advice, Hero One. Please wait a moment. As Zhang Xiaohua spoke, he waved his big sleeves and said loudly, Nye Qinyu, O Yin, wait a moment. After that, a light flashed and O Yin and Nye Qinyu appeared out of thin air, standing right next to the people from Misty School. O Yin and Nye Qinyu were slightly stunned when they saw the people from Misty School, but they still bowed to Zhang Xiaohua first. Greetings, Senior Brother Sect Leader. Yes, I'm sorry to disturb your cultivation. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, everyone from Misty School wants to talk to my Beidou School. I am not experienced enough. One of you is the eldest senior sister, and the other is experienced in business. Help me make a decision. Yes, Senior Brother Sect Leader. The two pretended to be serious and saluted. Then, they turned around and greeted the people from Misty School. Hu Yuni and the others had watched O Yin grow up. At this time, when they saw O Yin's appearance, they couldn't help but smile. Lu Qingyang even shouted, Yinzi, are you cultivating? You can cultivate internal energy? O Yin smiled and said, yes, fifth brother. Senior Brother Sect Leader has been kind enough to teach me the supreme secret of Beidou School. Now, I can be considered to have set foot on the path of immortality. Ah? Hu Yuni and the others were surprised. Apart from being surprised, they were also full of expectation and disbelief. Li Jin stuttered, Yinzi, Beidou School was only established a month ago. You also just came to Yaoshan a month ago. How could you? Haha, second brother, these are the methods of our Beidou School Senior Brother Sect Leader. I feel like I'm in a dream. O Yin said with a smile. That's good, that's good. My third brother can rest in peace in the underworld. Hu Yuni's eyes were almost filled with tears. At the mention of O Peng, O Yan's expression turned gloomy. She lowered her head for a moment, then bowed and said, Elder Hu, let's not talk about the past. May I know why your esteemed sect came here today to discuss with my Beidou School? Then, she apologized to Nye Qinyu, eldest senior sister. I'm very familiar with the Misty School. I may have overstepped my boundaries. Please don't take it to heart. Nye Qinyu hurriedly smiled and said, don't say that, junior sister. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Junior sister is in charge of all the chores in Beidou School. This is also Senior Brother Sect Leader's order. I'll just listen from the side. In the end, it's still up to eldest senior sister and Senior Brother Sect Leader to decide. O Yin said modestly. O Yin turned to Hu Yuni and said, Beidou School is newly established. Everything is my first time. Please forgive me, Elder Hu. Haha, it's fine, it's fine. Who doesn't have a first time in their life? Hu Yuni stroked his beard and said, since ancient times, heroes have always been young. In the future, the Jianghu should be yours. I'm old. I don't dare. Elder Hu, please enlighten me. O Yin said. Well, this time, I came to Misty School because I have 3 things to discuss with Beidou School. Hu Yuni said with a serious face. 3 things? O Yin nodded. Elder Hu, please tell me one by one. Sect Leader Zhang. Hu Yuni looked at O Yin, then cupped his hands and said to Zhang Xiaohua, actually, Sect Leader Zhang's kindness to Misty School is like a new life. To be honest, my Misty School's conditions to Beidou School are somewhat belittling. Even if these conditions are not discussed with Beidou School, as long as Beidou School needs my Misty School to do something, my Misty School should agree to it. Haha, didn't Elder Hu say it just now? In the past, I was the one who helped my second brother, so it can be considered I's own matters. These matters, everyone is well aware of them. Just use them as the basis for the cooperation between our 2 sections. There's no need to mention them again. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Sect Leader Zhang's breadth of mind? I admire you. Hu Yuni nodded and said, I remember that when sect leader Zhang took Shui Tiantian in as your disciple, you asked Tiantian about the fist techniques she used to practice in Misty School. After my investigation, I confirmed that there are a total of 321 disciples in the Young Eagle Hall of Misty School who practiced Beidou School's fist techniques under Zhang Qingyue and Shui Tiantian's guidance. Furthermore, there are still 303 disciples alive. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. Thank you. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Chidian. Com. -4. Chapter 1205. Seeing that O Yin was somewhat puzzled, Hu Yuni continued, Beidou School is newly established, and there's only sect leader Zhang and 7 disciples in the school. This really doesn't match the reputation of Beidou School. My Misty School has nothing to congratulate you on. These 302 disciples will be sent to Beidou School as ordinary disciples. Firstly, it's a congratulatory gift, and secondly, it's a bit of repayment for sect leader Zhang's kindness to my Misty School. Oh? O Yin stared blankly for a moment, then her face immediately lit up with joy. She said happily, Elder Hu's gift is very good. It can be said to be timely assistance. However, these Kitty Hawk Hall disciples have been nurtured by Misty School since they were young. Elder Hu, doesn't your heart ache if you give them to my Beidou School all of a sudden? Hee. Yin Zi's words are very true. These 302 disciples were all people I took away from Misty Mountain Villa in the past. These many years, I've been living with them day and night, and I have deep feelings for them. I indeed have high hopes for them. However, if these disciples are compared to the great kindness that Beidou School has shown to my Misty School, the difference is too great. Only by giving these disciples to Beidou School and expanding Beidou School's strength can I express my Misty School's gratitude. That's right, Elder Hu. These 302 Kitty Hawk Hall disciples have been nurtured by Misty School since they were young. Since they were young, they've regarded Misty School as their sect. Now that they've suddenly come to Beidou School, I'm afraid it won't be easy to restrain them. O Yin asked calmly. Hu Yuni nodded and said, Yin Zi's question is indeed good. However, these disciples are still young, and most of them are about the same age as Shui Tiantian. They've been living outside Misty Mountain Villa for the past few years, and their feelings towards Misty School are a lot weaker than those of ordinary disciples. Of course, I'm not saying that they don't have Misty School in their hearts. It's just that people strive for greater heights, and water flows to lower depths. Beidou School stands at the forefront of the path of immortality and occupies Mount Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. If they know that they can cultivate an immortal mansion, I'm afraid not everyone will fight to the death. O Yin nodded slightly. Also, with the relationship between sect leader Zhang of the Misty School and sect leader Zhang of your sect, I'm sure they'll be able to accept the transfer from the Misty School to the Beidou School. Elder Hu said with a smile, Sect leader Zhang, to be honest, there are some drawbacks in sending young disciples here. If it were any other sect, our Misty School would never dare to do such a thing. It's easy to cause misunderstandings. When Wenhai cupped his hands and said, However, I'm thinking the same thing as you, Elder Hu. Beidou School doesn't lack anything except for manpower. As for the development of Beidou School, if we only rely on Miss O, Miss Nya, Shui Tiantian, and the others, I'm afraid we won't be able to develop even a little bit in the next 10 years. Elder Hu made this suggestion, and gang leader Zhang also agreed. I think it's really feasible, so I made the suggestion. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Zhang Xiaohu's smiling face and knew that this guy must know that she had the soul-absorbing pill and wasn't afraid of spies, so she agreed. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua did not care about what tricks the ethereal sect had up their sleeves. After all, in this immortal abode, with the mansion guarding spiritual steel in hand, everyone could only surrender and be manipulated. Zhang Xiaohua still had a lot of trust in Wenhai. Seeing Wenhai's explanation, she nodded slightly and said, I understand what Swordsman Wen said. Since it's the Misty School's kindness, I won't be disrespectful. Hee, that's great, Wenhai said with a smile. As for the handover of the 302 disciples, let O Yin be in charge after the secret plane. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Thank you for your trust, sect leader Zhang. Elder Hu cupped his hands and said, "Only if sect leader Zhang accepts these 302 disciples will we have the face to discuss the second matter with sect leader Zhang." Elder Hu, what's the second matter? Please enlighten us. Yin nodded. Speaking of the second matter, it has something to do with Valley Master Nye of Rejuvenation Valley. Elder Hu glanced at Nye Qianyu and said with a smile, "What about Rejuvenation Valley?" Nye Qianyu asked curiously. "A month ago, Rejuvenation Valley visited our Misty School and formed an alliance with our Misty School." "Oh, of course, our Misty School isn't a member of their Yuli Alliance. It's a mutually supportive relationship," Hu Yuni explained. "When I heard Valley Master Nye mention the relationship between Rejuvenation Valley and the incense cult, I suddenly had an epiphany. I want to form a complementary relationship with Beidou School, just like Rejuvenation Valley and the incense cult." Zhang Xiaohua raised her eyebrows. Nye Qianyu asked, "Elder Hu, what are your plans?" It's simple. Every year, our Misty School can help Beidou School select young disciples with outstanding aptitudes and send them to Beidou School until Beidou School has the ability to select disciples. What does our Beidou School have to do?" Yin asked after a moment of contemplation. "Every year, your school needs to help our Misty School promote 5 disciples to step onto the path of immortality." 5 disciples? Yin shook her head and said, "How many Immortal Path disciples are there in the pugilistic world? Your Misty School wants our Beidou School to promote 5 Immortal Path disciples every year. That's impossible." Yin didn't report this to Zhang Xiaohua. Instead, she directly denied it. Hu Yuni thought for a moment, then smiled bitterly and said, "Actually, what our Misty School can do for Beidou School is too little. We can only show the strength of our Misty School in the next few years. When the Beidou School's young disciples are fully developed, our Misty School won't be able to catch the eye of Beidou School. So, overall, I'm afraid that our Misty School won't have too many Immortal Path experts." Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. Just as she was about to agree, Yin said, "Elder Hu, that's not right. As the saying goes, small streams flow long. Our Beidou School's disciples are all focused on cultivation. I'm afraid that we won't interfere much with worldly affairs. If our Misty School does a good job, we might be able to hand over everything to the Misty School in the future." Elder Hu was overjoyed when he heard this. He smiled and said, "If that's the case, the number of disciples per year can be reduced to 4. 2. Yin said, "Our Beidou School still has its own disciples. 2 is indeed too little. How about 3? Elder Hu said earnestly. Yin turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua. She seemed to be satisfied and wanted Zhang Xiaohua to make the decision. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "I'll allow this, but there are still some other conditions." Approved? Hu Yuni was stunned. Then, he was overjoyed. How many Immortal Path disciples could there be in the pugilistic world? Beidou School could actually let 3 Misty School disciples enter the path of immortality every year. Not to mention 5 years, in just 3 years, 9 disciples would enter the path of immortality. This was comparable to the incense cult. Zhang Xiaohu didn't reveal Hu Yuni's bottom line in advance, but judging from his surprised expression, it was obviously beyond his expectations. "Yes, I'll allow it." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Not only that, everyone in the Misty School in the main hall, as long as it's possible, I can help you enter the path of immortality." When Wen Hai, Lu Yuiming, and Xue Qing's faces were flushed. They knew that Zhang Xiaohu was about the same age as them. If Zhang Xiaohu could enter the path of immortality, then so could they. Li Jin and the others were already old, so Zhang Xiaohua's words were obviously meant for them. Hu Yuni, Li Jin, Lu Qingyang, and Madame Qin were also overjoyed. The incense cult and Between the Clouds and the Water both had methods to enter the path of immortality through martial arts. Beidou School must have some methods as well. "Thank you, sect leader Zhang." Everyone bowed. "Don't be in such a hurry to thank me. I's help isn't without conditions." Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, "The things you need to raise your cultivation to the path of immortality must be provided by your Misty School. Also, the techniques and pills used by the 3 disciples must also be provided by your Misty School." Hu Yuni and Li Jian were at a loss for words. They didn't know that 3 things were needed for 3 disciples to enter the path of immortality, so they could only turn to look at Zhang Xiaohu. Zhang Xiaohu nodded and said, "These conditions, my Misty school agrees. After all, these things need a lot of money, so there's no reason for Beidou school to pay for my Misty school. Since sect leader Zhang agrees, then it's easy to handle." Zhang Xiaohua clapped her hands and smiled. Zhang Xiaohu glared at him but didn't say anything. Seeing that the 2 factions had reached an agreement, Yin was also happy. She asked, "Then what's the 3rd suggestion, Elder Hu?" "Oh, this 3rd suggestion isn't anything special. It's just an addition to the first 2 suggestions. It's the icing on the cake." Hu Yuni thought for a moment and said, "If sect leader Zhang doesn't have any objections to the first 2 suggestions, my Misty school and Beidou school would like to further form an alliance. Under the premise of complementing each other, we can advance and retreat together in the Jianghu, going through thick and thin together." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he couldn't help but frown. He had previously told Zhang Xiaohu about this relationship, hoping that Beidou school and Misty school could become close brothers, just like he and his second brother. However, he had only said it casually back then. Moreover, Beidou school hadn't been established yet, so it was easy for him to say it without thinking about the consequences of his words. Now that he heard Hu Yuni and Yan's negotiation, Zhang Xiaohua realized that his previous thoughts might have been too simple. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's frown, Yan couldn't make a decision. She thought for a moment and said, "Elder Hu, can you elaborate further?" Hu Yuni also said seriously, "Actually, this 3rd suggestion is something we suddenly thought of before we came. Since our Misty school's sect leader Zhang and your sect's sect leader Zhang are blood brothers, we dare to make this suggestion. I can't explain it in detail, but if our Misty school is in danger of being wiped out, I hope that your sect's sect leader will lend us a helping hand. Our Misty school will also take responsibility for all of your sect's trivial matters in the Jianghu." When Yin heard this, she frowned. This exchange seemed to be extremely disproportionate. The Misty school had only helped Beidou school with a simple matter, but in exchange, they had asked for Beidou school's help when their own sect was about to be wiped out. This really didn't make sense. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. Thank you. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Chidian. Com. -4. Chapter 1206. December's monthly votes once again reached 30 votes, bringing 2011 to a perfect end. Thank you for your love and votes. New No Move Beats Moves, Get Up, A Drop of Smelly Water, Haxiaki, Spear Sail, Blood-Sucking Immortal, Dark Night Sky, Xiaohong, 0812281929311720, PE, 95183149, Xiaohong, Spear Sail, Feng Shui Dao, I Want Red Packet, Get Up, LHL 00, Lele 1030, Wanderlust 114, I Want Red Packet, PE, 11221121, 1212, Blood-Sucking Immortal, Ghost Immortal Scholar, Eat Apple, Uncle Beijing, Little Magic Pig GM, Xiaohong, Blue Crystal Spirit, and thank you for your birthday wishes. Third place still remembers, the first book friend to vote is Book Friend 0909041812255555. The first reader to subscribe was Love Drinking Dark Beer. The first reader to tip was Little Girl Baby. The first reader to post an effective comment was Counting Fingers. Waiting for the next update. The first reader to click was Two Butterflies of Summer. There were also many readers, such as Get Up, A Drop of Smelly Water, Shout Song, Clown Elf, Recruiting Kaishur, Kaboka, Mad Dog's Coquettish Eyes, Brilliant Fireworks, Extreme Sky Strange Clouds, Listening to the Waves and Watching the Moon, Analyst, Thousand Feather Pegasus, and so on. There were simply too many to list here. Thank you for your support. I especially wanted to thank the 3 sub-moderators, Counting Fingers, Mad Dog's Coquettish Eyes, and Brilliant Fireworks. They did a lot of work to let third place focus on writing the story. Actually, third place didn't just want to thank third place for spending 2011 with third place, but also for allowing third place to write his own story. Forgotten in Jianghu was different from all the other cultivation novels on the internet. There were too many things in it that had nothing to do with cultivation. When the first volume was finished and everyone read it from beginning to end, they might be able to see the charm of these details. However, the first volume of Forgotten in Jianghu was just practice. The second, third, and fourth volumes were the real cultivation stories for everyone. Just wait and see. In 2012, the second volume of Forgotten in Jianghu will begin. A new year, a new beginning, a new Jianghu. Damn, I forgot to give everyone a New Year's greeting. Happy New Year, good luck in everything, and good fortune. -4. Chapter 1207. Fusing with the light as light escape, transforming into the light as a god, turning against the light as a saint. Watch how I turn against the light to become a saint. Volume 1. Forgetting in Jianghu has ended. This is a story from the age of immortals. Since our love is destined by the heavens, then let us love each other. Although this love is very humble, very shallow, and also very short, different from all the other loves in the world, but it is still a love after all, a love that belongs to you and me. This love is exceptionally pure, exceptionally sincere. I am willing to use my not long life to protect this love. Please believe. I really love you. Since we can't help each other in times of need, then let us forget each other in Jianghu. Although this Jianghu is extremely far away, my heart will always only have you. Volume 2. Light Escape has begun. This is a mystical and dazzling world of cultivation. There are all kinds of strange spells, all kinds of strange characters, and even a legendary story of fusing with the body into the light, practicing the unprecedented light escape, and becoming the world's #1 escape technique. Volume 3. It should be a story of moving mountains and overturning seas, creating life, being free and unfettered, immortality, and even the creation of the universe to become a god. Volume 4. Others say that one can become a saint through virtue and prove one's Tao through strength, but I want to prove my Tao through speed and turn against the light to become a saint. QQ Discussion Group 7350238 QQ Discussion Group VIP 170571364 -4. Chapter 1208. Seeing Oh Yan's hesitation, Hu Yuni smiled and said, "Actually, Beidou School seems to be at a disadvantage, but if you think about it carefully, under the leadership of sect leader Zhang, our Misty School strength has increased greatly. Other than the Dalan Temple, the Incense sect, the Righteous Alliance, and the Tenryu sect, no other sect has dared to provoke us. We won't be facing such a crisis for many years, but your sect can come to our Misty School at any time." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Elder Hu is right. Although our Beidou School has been established, our strength is limited. Elder Hu must have seen the future of our Beidou School and thought of this alliance. Moreover, in the Jianghu today, after the Battle of Yaoshan Immortal Abode, the strength of the various sects has been greatly affected. Not to mention the small sects, among the large sects, the Righteous Alliance has lost the strength to compete with the Misty School. If we talk about sect annihilation, I'm afraid the Misty School won't be in the same situation as before." Then, Zhang Xiaohua looked at Zhang Xiaohu and said, "As long as my second brother is the sect leader of the Misty School, I may not care about the ordinary crisis of the Misty School, but when it comes to sect annihilation, how can I not take action?" Sect leader Zhang is right. This old man knows, but life is limited. As long as sect leader Zhang is in charge of Yaoshan Immortal Abode, you can say this, but what about the future? My Misty School has been around for tens of thousands of years, and the Beidou School has been around for at least tens of thousands of years. The future is not something we can think of. This old man is doing this because I want the Misty School and the Beidou School to be in harmony for generations, and to be in alliance forever." Zhang Xiaohua sighed and shook her head. Harmony for generations, an alliance forever. This is too difficult. Your Misty School's founder, Yang Haoya, and the Incense sect's founder, Yu Mingxin, their relationship is extraordinary. Even the Xindao sect's founder, Wan Wuxin, came from the same place as those two founders. Their relationship is needless to say. Their thoughts back then, weren't they the same as yours? But what happened to the Shindao sect? What happened to your Misty school? Anyone in the Jianghu who has some sort of inheritance knows this very well. Elder Hu, do you think that we can do better than them? Sect leader Zhang is right. Actually, when this old man came, I also thought about a lot of things. But everything depends on one's effort. If this old man doesn't do it now, in a few years or even 10 years, I won't have the chance to do it again. If we just rely on the relationship between the two sect leaders, I'm afraid it won't be very reliable. For both the Beidou school and the Misty school, this is extremely unrealistic. Hu Yuni said sincerely, so, this old man knows that this matter is a bit ridiculous and unrealistic. But, for my Misty school, this old man is willing to do this stupid thing. No matter what the relationship between the Misty school and the Beidou school is in the future, this old man has tried his best. This old man has no regrets. Good. Hu Yuni's words made Zhang Xiaohua's blood boil. She stood up and said, Elder Hu, this old man has tried his best. This old man has no regrets sounds very pleasing to my ears. Although my Beidou school starting point is very high, but, after all, it's congenitally deficient and has a weak foundation. These are exactly what the Misty school has. If my sect and your sect can learn from each other's strengths to make up for our weaknesses, we'll be able to complement each other. Oh Yin, this matter is settled. Discuss it with Elder Hu later and see what to do. Yes, senior sect leader. Oh Yin was extremely happy when she heard this. Also, as for the new disciples, you'll see how to recruit them and how to operate them. These things should be handled by Hall Master Shui, right? You'll have to communicate with him. Yes, I won't let the two sect leaders down. Xueqing bowed and said. Hu Yuni's face was flushed. He said somewhat embarrassedly, Sect leader Zhang, this old man has a small request. Zhang Xiaohua said curiously, Elder Hu, please speak. How is Shui Tiantian now? He has been by my side and has always been guided by me. Now that he's suddenly left, I'm a little worried. I thought it was something big. Zhang Xiaohua laughed and waved her hand. A ray of light flashed, and Shui Tiantian appeared in front of everyone sitting cross-legged. Yes, master. Shui Tiantian opened his eyes and was stunned when he saw everyone from the Misty school. However, he still bowed to Zhang Xiaohua and said, May I know why master has called this disciple over? Misty school's elder who missed you and wanted to come and see you. Grandmaster. Shui Tiantian turned around and looked at Elder Hu's familiar face. His eyes were wet as he bowed and said, Greetings, Elder Hu. Good child, get up, get up. Hu Yuni's eyes were also red. He helped Shui Tiantian up and asked, Tiantian, are you all right? Reporting. Grandmaster, this disciple is fine. Shui Tiantian finally couldn't help but call out Grandmaster. Then, he felt that it was inappropriate and turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was only smiling and didn't mind, he was relieved. As long as you're fine. You don't have to be too greedy for cultivation. You're still young. Slowly build your foundation. Don't be like before. Keep the hatred in your heart. Grandmaster. Shui Tiantian couldn't help but cry. He knelt down and kowtowed. Grandmaster, this disciple is really sorry. You treat this disciple like family. But this disciple is unscrupulous and fed you poison. This disciple deserves to die. Sigh, don't mention the past anymore. Hu Yuni sighed. This isn't your fault. It's all Shui Yuping's fault. He was blinded by greed and used you as a tool. What crime have you committed? But he's still this disciple's father. This disciple thinks about it day and night. I don't have the face to see Grandmaster again. Actually, thinking about it again, Shui Yuping had no choice but to do this for your safety. This old man. Sigh, forget it. He's already gone. My poison and serious injuries have been cured by your master. You don't have to blame yourself too much. This old man has no son and has always treated you like a grandson. As long as you're doing well in Beidou school, this old man is happier than anything else. Speaking of which, during the years when Hu Yuni led the Misty School's disciples to exile, He had been carefully cultivating Shui Tiantian, treating him as the future hope of the Misty School. After a long time, he naturally developed feelings for him. Although Shui Yuping's scheme was involved in the end, it was impossible for Hu Yuni to resent Shui Tiantian. This disciple knows. This disciple is very happy in Beidou School, Shui Tiantian said with tears on his face. Suddenly, as if he had something fun to share with the adults, Shui Tiantian couldn't hold back the joy on his face. He looked at Hu Yuni and said, "Grandmaster, this disciple has something to tell you." Seeing how Shui Tiantian seemed to be hiding an excellent toy and wanted to show it to Hu Yuni in hopes of receiving his praise, Hu Yuni's heart softened. He recalled how Shui Tiantian would always show off to him when he was young before he mastered a move. Hu Yuni's tone became even more benevolent. "What's wrong? Tiantian, what kind of martial art did you master?" "Yes, Grandmaster." Shui Tiantian was just about to say something when he thought of something. He quickly turned around and looked at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know and only nodded slightly to express her agreement. Only then did Shui Tiantian turn around and say with a smile, "When this disciple was following Grandmaster, Grandmaster always said, if this disciple mastered martial arts in the future, I would be able to inherit the Misty School's immortal path and step onto the immortal path. You also said that your greatest wish was to let this disciple step onto the immortal path, to revitalize the Misty School." Sigh, that's right. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have almost fought with sect leader Zhang and let the Righteous Alliance take advantage of me for nothing. Hu Yuni sighed and said, "At that time, my body was already on the verge of death. If I didn't make arrangements for you, my Misty School would never be able to rise again. However, fortunately, sect leader Zhang is the pillar of my Misty School. This old man has long been relieved. He, Grandmaster, this disciple, has already stepped onto the immortal path a few days ago," Shui Tiantian said with a smile. "Ah?" Hu Yuni was stunned and immediately became ecstatic. "Tiantian, you're also a person of the immortal path?" "Yes, Grandmaster. This disciple is stupid. I even entered the immortal path after senior brother Ji." "It's nothing," Shui Tiantian said shyly. "Ji Xiaohua?" Hu Yuni was even more shocked. He also stepped onto the immortal path? However, he immediately felt that it was inappropriate and immediately cupped his hands at Zhang Xiaohua. "Sect leader Zhang, this old man's tone is a little reckless. It's because I've seen Xiaohua before. He doesn't have any foundation in martial arts at all. That's why I'm so surprised." It's fine, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. "Then, sect leader Zhang, how many of your disciples have yet to step onto the immortal path?" Li Jian suppressed his surprise and couldn't help but probe. In my Beidou School, other than martial nephew Zhang Byron who's still young, the other 6 disciples have already reached the immortal path," Nie Qinyu said proudly. Everyone in the Misty School, including Zhang Xiaohu, looked at each other. It had only been a month since the Beidou School was established, and it had already cultivated 6 disciples of the immortal path. And these disciples were all known by the Misty School. No wonder. They easily agreed to cultivate 3 disciples of the immortal path for the Misty School every year. It's so easy for the Beidou School. "Xiaohua, you're too unkind," Zhang Xiaohu said with a frown. "Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. Thank you. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Chidian. Com. -4. Chapter 1209. Second brother. This is a matter between Beidou School and Misty School, not a private matter between you and me," Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Zhang Xiaohu thought for a moment and nodded. "Master Zhang is right. That's exactly what we should do. Since Master Zhang approves, it's easy to do. Let Nie Qinyu and O Yin communicate with you about these things. We're all family. Just do what we've been doing for the past decades, and let the disciples worry about the future." Zhang Xiaohua touched her chin and said, "By the way, it's almost time. Are Elder Li and others going to the secluded plain?" Zhang Xiaohu shook his head and said, Elderly has just recovered from his injury and his internal strength has not fully recovered. This time, he just came to talk about cooperation with Beidou school. He definitely can't go to the secluded plane. Then he pointed to Aunt Qin and Xue Qing and said, Hallmaster Qin and Hallmaster Xue also came to talk about things. They won't go. Well, in this case, Elderly, are you going back now? Or, Master Zhang, I haven't been to Holy Realm Dweller's mansion yet. How about I stay here for a few more days? Hu Yuni said with a smile. Of course, Tian also misses you very much. You can go back with my second brother after the secluded plane. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, and I'll have to trouble Hall Master Xue and Hall Master Qin with many things. Let's strike while the iron is hot and draw up a charter for future operations. Everyone in Misty School was overjoyed. The earlier they formed an alliance with Beidou School, the earlier the Misty School could improve their strength, and the earlier they could set foot on the path of immortality. Well, second brother, shall we go now? Zhang Xiaohua got up and asked. Let's go. Chang'e and Chun won't go. It's only a day's work in the secluded site. I'll see my parents when I come back. Zhang Xiaohu nodded and said, By the way, Xiaohua, you'd better dress up like a senior who had a relationship with my Misty School. The Fragrance Cult and the Dalan Temple both have immortal masters. If my Misty School doesn't have any, I'm afraid there will be some twists and turns in the secret plane. Sure. Zhang Xiaohua nodded. In any case, they all know that there is such an expert of the immortal Tao. As he spoke, Zhang Xiaohua waved his hand. Aunt Qin, Xue Qing, and the others disappeared and were sent to the side of the lake. Then, he sent Zhang Xiaohu and the others to the foot of Yao Mountain and said, Wait here for a while. I will wash up and dress up now. Sure enough, within a few minutes, a handsome Taoist pan and with a moderate figure appeared in front of Zhang Xiaohu and the others. Li Jin and the others had only heard about it from Zhang Xiaohu, but they had never seen him. At this time, they only felt that it was incredible. Just now, he was Zhang Xiaohua, but in a moment, he became a completely different person. Zhang Xiaohu seemed to be used to it. He glanced at him and said, Taoist Pan, this place is not far from the secluded site. We still need to cover our tracks. I'm not familiar with this road. Deputy Gang Leader Wan and Deputy Gang Leader Liu have been there before. Please lead the way. What do you think? Well, I'll listen to Gang Leader Zhang's instructions, Zhang Xiaohua whispered. Then, Zhang Xiaohua took out a few jade talismans and handed them to everyone. He smiled and said, I have a feeling that this secluded site may not be safe, and there may be something that I can't take care of. This is the jade talisman of the way of immortality. I just learned it recently. It's quite magical to use. Take it. Take them. If you encounter any danger, just crush them. If nothing unexpected happens, they should be able to protect you for 2 hours. Everyone took it and was stunned. The jade talisman looked like a rabbit. Zhang Xiaohua's face was burning. He whispered, Hey, this jade talisman is not very successful. If it's perfect, it should look like a rabbit. Is it really a rabbit? Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, I thought I was wrong. Then, he carefully put the jade talisman into his arms and said, A rabbit is not bad. It's better than an ingot. Second brother, Zhang Xiaohua shouted. The others were puzzled, but seeing Zhang Xiaohu's treasured look, they also carefully put away the jade talisman. Let's go. Zhang Xiaohu ignored Zhang Xiaohua and looked around. He waved his hand and said, Vice Gang Leader 1, please lead the way. At this time, the sky was getting dark and the evening mist was heavy. Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, Wan Hai, Lu Yueming and Zhang Xiaohu used their qinggong to hide their presence and went to 5 Claw Peak. Zhang Xiaohua hid her figure and followed Zhang Xiaohu's back. The night had already fallen, and the round moon was gradually moving towards the sky. Tonight was a clear and sunny day. Under the water-like moonlight, the 5 Claw Peak pierced straight into the night sky. A chilly wind blew past, blowing the withered grass and yellow leaves into the air. A few afterimages flashed past, and then their silhouettes appeared in the moonlight. Below the Thumb Peak, on a large piece of flatland, Zhang Xiaohu and the others stopped next to a crouching ox rock. Reporting to Sect Leader Zhang, it's here. Last time, Lay practitioner Yinming said it was next to this crouching ox rock. Looking at the crouching ox rock, which was exactly the same as it was a few years ago, when Wen Hai couldn't help but feel emotional, he pointed at the rock and said to Zhang Xiaohu, "Good." Zhang Xiaohu looked at the sky and asked, "It's already past 9. Where are the people from the Dalan Temple and incense cult?" Before he finished speaking, Zhang Xiaohua whispered something to him. "Oh, understood." Zhang Xiaohu nodded slightly, looked around, and jumped onto the crouching ox rock. He sat down cross-legged, as if he was regulating his qi circulation. Li Jian and the others were in a protective position, surrounding the crouching ox rock. After half an hour, a slight rustling sound came from the east. When Zhang Xiaohu opened his eyes, he saw several Dalan temple monks in monk robes had quietly appeared not far from the crouching ox rock. Under the moonlight, they were Master Chang Sheng, Great Master Chang Gung, Master Chang Xing, and 3 skinny monks. Zhang Xiaohu had already received information that these 3 skinny monks were Master Tiangang, Master Yuandao, and Master Yuanming. He immediately felt deep veneration for them. He jumped up from the crouching ox rock and went forward to salute them. Zhang Xiaohu from the Misty School greets Master Chang Sheng and all the other masters. Master Chang Sheng and the others floated in the air and arrived at the scene. When they used their divine senses, they noticed Zhang Xiaohua standing not far behind Zhang Xiaohu. When they saw Zhang Xiaohu coming over to salute them, only Master Chang Sheng put his palms together and smiled. "Sect leader Zhang, you're early." "I wouldn't dare. I'm a junior in Jianghu. Since I've been summoned by my seniors, of course I have to wait early," Zhang Xiaohu said respectfully. Although the Dalan Temple was one of the participants in destroying the Misty School that day, Zhang Xiaohu did not directly confront the Dalan Temple. There were not many monks that day, and Master Chang Sheng had a good reputation in Jianghu. He did not allow Zhang Xiaohu to be disrespectful. Amitabha, Master Chang Sheng chanted the name of Buddha. He then raised his head and said, "How should I address all of you?" Why haven't I seen you before?" "My name is Pan. I've been cultivating in seclusion. I'm a nameless itinerant cultivator. It's normal that the elders don't know because I have an old relationship with the seniors of the Misty School. I also received some favors from the seniors of the Misty School. By chance, I found out that the Misty School was in trouble. That's why I lent a helping hand. However, I don't care about worldly affairs. The affairs of Jianghu are intertwined with gratitude and grudges. It's hard to say who's right and who's wrong. Your grudges. I don't care. Fellow Taoist, you're very generous. Thousands of people from the Misty School. All of them recovered their martial arts. Even I feel ashamed of my inferiority. How can I be a nameless itinerant cultivator? However, I don't know if the Misty School has passed down any immortal cultivation techniques for generations. Master Tiangang said in a low voice. Master Tiangang's name is well known throughout the world. I've admired you for a long time. However, I don't like fighting and lack the desire to win. Master, I'm afraid we're not fated to meet. Just as they were talking, another voice sounded, Master Panin, you live up to your name. I've admired you for a long time. Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and saw a group of people slowly approaching from the mountain path not far away. They were the Misty School's disciples who had arrived earlier. Looking at Nanjing Yi, who was speaking, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "You're just a piece of trash. How can you live up to your name?" None eyes admiration, but I can't accept it. While they were talking, the Misty School's disciples had arrived. They were Nanjing Yi, Nun Shuqing, Nun Shuezhen, Peacock, Qin Shun, and Yu Yin. Fellow Taoist, your name has spread throughout Jianghu before the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. I don't know how many people admire you, but I wonder, why didn't you come to the fight for the Immortal Mansion? If you did, I'm afraid that the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion wouldn't belong to Beidou School anymore. Ha ha ha, the appearance of the Immortal Mansion can only be obtained by the virtuous. I have never dared to consider myself virtuous, and I'm used to cultivating in a quiet place. As for the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, it's better to keep it as bait for others. Hearing this, Master Tiangang, Nun Shuqing, and the others' faces changed slightly. The Yaoshan Immortal Mansion wasn't just their bait. It was the bait for the entire Jianghu. All the sects in Jianghu were defeated at Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. If there was any sect that benefited, other than the Beidou school, it would be the Misty school, the Misty school that didn't participate in the fight for the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion at all. Nanjing stood not far away, coldly looking at Zhang Xiaohu, and calmly said, "Sect leader Zhang, it's only been a few months since we parted at Mosunggong. Are you well?" Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohu smiled, but didn't go forward. He cupped his hands and saluted. "Ever since I left Lingering Fragrance Peak, I've been very well. Thank you for your concern, Nun. As for the grudge between the Misty School and the Incense Cult, I don't think I need to say anything. I've already told the inner sect disciple you sent, so there's no need for me to repeat myself." Hee, sect leader Zhang's methods are good. Even I admire you greatly. In addition, this sect leader Pan behind you is actually playing with the incense cult in the palm of his hand. I truly admire you. Nanjing, do you think my Misty School's torment is light? Lu Qingyang shouted. If it weren't for my sect leader Zhang's wisdom and courage, my Misty School would be, please cast a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a collection, and a tip. Thank you. -4. Chapter 12:10.
Cough, cough.
Zhang Xiaohu coughed softly, and Lu Qingyang's voice immediately softened. I've already told you about the Misty School at Lingering Fragrance Peak. The reason behind it isn't as simple as you think. If you're talking about torment, there are also people like Master Longevity from the Dalan Temple. You can ask them too. Sigh. Sect leader Zhang, I feel guilty about what happened in the past. Everything was used by others. I'm sure sect leader Zhang already knows about it, but I don't want to explain. Master Longevity smiled bitterly. All right, the mastermind from back then is here. Nanjing said softly. Sure enough, Zhang Xiaohu had already sensed something. From the side of the crouching ox rock, in the forest to the south, a few figures were also flying over with lightness skills. It was Alliance leader Zhang San from the Alliance of Righteous Sects. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Li Jian and the others narrowed their eyes when they saw the familiar figures. Lu Qingyang's fists were already clenched. Cough, cough. Master Longevity coughed and said softly, Sect leader Zhang, today is a big day for the 4 sections. Don't delay the great cause of the Misty School because of some small matter. Of course, our ethereal sect has always prioritized the big picture. How can we create more trouble at this time? Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohu looked at Nanjing and Master Longevity and said with a smile, Oh right, sect leader Zhang, how are Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng? How are my thousands of Wuming Hall disciples? This time, when our inner disciples went over, they actually avoided meeting them. I'm surprised. Nanjing suddenly asked. Nun, you're really forgetful. Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng admire our Misty School's legacy and specially joined our Misty School. They've always relied on the inner disciples in spreading fragrance cult. When they came to our Misty School, they became the masters. Right now, they're carefree on Misty Peak. How can they have the time to care about you? Zhang Xiaohu had already thought of a countermeasure. When she heard this, Nanjing almost exploded in anger. Nanjing's voice grew louder. Abbess, today is a big day for the 4 sections. Don't delay the great cause of the incense cult because of some small matter. Abbess, please conduct yourself with dignity. Zhang Xiaohu looked at Abbess Jingyi and said with a smile. Nanjing's lips trembled. Cough, cough. When Master Longevity saw this, he quickly coughed a few times. He turned to Alliance Leader Zhang San and said, Alliance Leader Zhang San, why are you late? Sigh, Master. Alliance Master Zhang San looked at the 5 inner force experts beside him and smiled bitterly. Ever since we parted ways at Yaoshan Mountain, our alliance has been hiding nearby. But Bai Yinxiu from between the clouds and the water seems to have sensed our presence. He has been searching for our whereabouts all this time. If it was before, our alliance might not have been afraid. But now, our alliance did not bring enough manpower, and there are also immortal experts between the clouds and the water. Our alliance can only endure. Between the clouds and the water. Actually sense something? Master Longevity was slightly stunned. He immediately released his divine sense and looked for a while. He then turned to Master Tiangang and asked, "Master, is there anything strange around here?" Master Tiangang shook his head slightly. Master Longevity let out a sigh of relief. He knew that Alliance leader Zhang San did not have an immortal divine sense. If he was being followed, he might not know. Master Tiangong's divine sense was the strongest among all of them. If he did not sense anything, then it must be nothing. All right, the people of our 4 sects have gathered. Let's go to the secret plane according to our original agreement. Master Longevity waved his hand and said, "No matter what grudges there were between our 4 sects, before we come out of the secret plane, there must be no friction. Everyone knows that Beidou School has taken the initiative in the Yaoshan Immortal Abode. This secret plane is the key to the revival of our 4 sections. If anyone messes up this important matter, the other 3 sects will join forces to punish them." Alliance leader Zhang San stood not far from Zhang Xiaohu. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but after hearing Master Longevity's words, he swallowed his words. "Let's go." Master Longevity waved his sleeves and took the lead. Master Tiangang and the others also floated in the air and followed. Then, the incense cult followed. Alliance leader Zhang San was about to move when he heard Zhang Xiaohu say in a low voice, "Does the martial arts sect have to walk before the immortal path?" As he spoke, he leaped up and used the ethereal steps, which was comparable to the levitation technique. He lightly brought Li Jian and the others with him. "You." Alliance Master Zhang San was furious. Just as he was about to regain some of his dignity, he felt a frosty gaze sweep past Zhang Xiaohu. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's handsome face, he jumped. "Taoist Pan?" Alliance leader Zhang San almost groaned. "Humph." Zhang Xiaohua snorted coldly and used the levitation technique. Her body floated in the air and followed behind Lu Yueming, heading towards the direction of the ring finger of 5 Claws Peak. This Alliance leader Zhang San was a little dumbfounded. Looking at their backs, he couldn't help but grit his teeth and touch his chest a few times. Then, he waved his hand and said in a low voice, "Let's go." Everyone's qigong was excellent, and they even had the levitation technique. In less than half an hour, they arrived at the dense forest in the middle of the ring finger peak. The dark and silent forest was like a monster that had not moved since ancient times. It was lying there quietly. Even the brilliance of snow could not cover the forest. Zhang Xiaohua used her divine sense to scan the forest. She felt that the forest was exactly the same as when she first came. There was nothing special about it. However, when her divine sense swept past every jujube tree, a trace of uneasiness was transmitted from her divine sense to her heart. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She thought of the indescribable throbbing in her heart before the Misty School's visit. She couldn't help but be shocked. She thought to herself, could it be that tonight's trip is a great omen? The more she thought about it, the more mysterious the jujube forest became in her eyes. Faction leader Zhang, this jujube forest. I'm afraid there's something strange about it. Zhang Xiaohua said in a low voice, with eyes cultivation. It's difficult to see the truth of this place. If it's possible. Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to finish, Master Chang Sheng said in a low voice, everyone, this place is an ancient divine array. If you don't have the map that leads to the array, no matter what your cultivation is, as long as you enter the forest, you'll definitely die. There are records of this place in the ancient books of the Dalan Temple. It's also very clear that you should never take the risk to enter. You're right, Master Chang Sheng. Our incense cult also has similar records. Moreover, this sheepskin scroll has been lost tens of thousands of years ago, so we've all put this forest at the back of our minds. Now that the map has reappeared, it's time for our 4 schools of immortal Tao to revive. Nun Jingyi nodded. All right, according to the ancient books, this forest's array can only be opened under the morning sun on the 15th day of the first lunar month. At any other time, it's a dead array. Therefore, we'll have to wait here until tomorrow morning to enter the array. Master Chang Sheng continued. By the way, someone from the Misty School entered the array a few years ago. Is this old monk's words true? Reporting to Master Chang Sheng, our vice faction leader when Wan Hai entered this array a few years ago. It's exactly as you said. Zhang Xiaohu looked at Wan Hai and stepped forward. That's good. Since someone from the Misty School has entered, tomorrow morning, let's invite the Misty School to be the first to enter. What do you all think? Everyone hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Well, since someone from the Misty School has entered, I wonder if you can tell us in detail about the layout of the secret plane? Master Chong Sheng asked with a smile. Haha, Master, after we enter. If there are treasures, how should we distribute them? We haven't finished discussing these matters, yet you want the Misty School to provide information. I'm afraid it's not appropriate, Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. Oh? Master Chong Sheng was stunned. Nanjingyi said apologetically, since faction leader Zhang didn't want to see us, we could only send our inner disciples to pass the message. We haven't told faction leader Zhang the specific details yet. Yes, Master Chong Sheng nodded slightly and said, according to the ancient books, the secret plane is quite large. Some places have their own universe. It's far from the size of the mountain we see now. Therefore, when the 4 sects enter, we'll divide whatever we see equally. If we can't divide it equally, the sect that wants to get the remaining items will have to compensate the other 3 sections. As for the items within the restriction, it'll depend on each sect's actions. Whoever has the ability to take more will take it based on their ability. After he finished speaking, he said to Zhang Xiaohu, faction leader Zhang, what do you think of this method? Zhang Xiaohu was speechless. He looked at Master Chong Sheng, Great Master Changgang, and Master Chong Xing behind him. Well, there were also 3 skinny and shriveled masters. He felt bitter in his mouth. Was there a need to say more? The inside was full of immortal Tao restrictions. The Dalan Temple had come prepared. Of course, they would take the lead. However, thinking about the unpredictable Zhang Xiaohua, Zhang Xiaohu cupped his hands and said, of course, the secret plane? We have to rely on our own strength to fight for treasures. If we walk behind others, we'll only be blind. Then, he glanced sideways at Alliance leader Zhang San. At this time, Alliance leader Zhang San had already calmed down, as if he hadn't heard anything. He raised his head to look at the dense forest under the moonlight, his eyes full of admiration. Well, would Vice Faction Leader Wen please explain a little? Master Chong Sheng said with a smile. Yes, please wait a moment. Zhang Xiaohu turned his head and gave Wan Hai a look. Thus, when Wan Hai whispered about the last time they entered the dense forest, the process wasn't very detailed, and the objects inside were also vague. What? Is there only such a small place? Master Chong Sheng frowned. Are there only those old medicinal herbs inside? Nun Jingyi was also shocked. Speaking of medicinal herbs, there were many in Yulon Grand Canyon. Her incense cult didn't need to mess around here. Reporting to the 2 seniors, this is indeed what this disciple saw back then. As for any restrictions, formations, or other immortal Tao methods, this disciple doesn't know. I reckon that Yiming Jusher back then might not know either. When Wan Hai said with a wry smile, well, that's indeed true. Master Chong Sheng and Nun Jingyi both nodded. After a while, Master Chong Sheng asked apologetically, Faction Leader Zhang, this old monk has overstepped. I wonder, what did Faction Leader O obtain in this secret plane back then? -4. Chapter 12:11. Humph, you destroyed the Tan family, Yiming Villa, and Wan Jianfeng. What? You don't know anything? Lu Qingyang coldly snorted. What? Jianghu is filled with grudges and vengeance. If you don't have strength, don't be blinded by greed and go looking for treasures. Otherwise, you'll only end up with your family destroyed. Nun Jingyi also coldly snorted. Actually, I just want to confirm whether or not this jungle is worth the risk. Master Chong Sheng pulled a long face and asked. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, actually, it's nothing. It's just a few qi-generating pills and a few bone-strengthening pills. Hee. In addition to this, your school seems to have another jade box. Nun Jingyi laughed. Zhang Xiaohu calmly said, inside that jade box is a sword manual. My Misty School had already arranged for the young Eagle Hall disciples to practice it before Baso passed away. Nun Jingyi nodded slightly. It seemed that this sword manual, she knew about it. Yes, Opong, and the other's explosive increase in internal strength should be the effect of this qi-generating pill. Master Chang Sheng also nodded. Since this kind of pill is in the small house, there might be more hidden in the array. That's right, Vice Boss One, in the small house. What else is there? Nun Jingyi asked again. This. When Wenhai thought for a moment, then looked at Zhang Xiaohu and said, there's nothing in the house. Apart from some incense burners, a jade table, a square table, and 3 chairs, there's nothing else. At this point, when Wenhai seemed to have thought of something and said excitedly, that's right, on the wall on the right, there are 3 portraits hanging. It's just that they're too old to be seen clearly. Portraits? Not only was Nun Jingyi surprised, but Zhang Xiaohua, who was standing far behind them, was also surprised. Who are the people in the portraits? Nun Jingyi asked nervously. This one seems to be a swordsman with a saber, another seems to be a scholar with a folding fan, and the last seems to be a masked woman. When Wenhai thought for a moment and said, is the woman holding something in her hand? Nun Shuqing asked. Oh, it seems it's a long whip. Ah. Nun Jingyi and Nun Shuqing's faces were filled with joy. Seeing Wenhai's confusion, they couldn't help but sneer. That scholar with the folding fan is your Misty School's founder, Yang Haoya. You don't even know how to kowtow in front of him. This is really blasphemy against your founder. Me? When Wenhai's expression changed. But, thinking that it was impossible for the other party to lie to him, he couldn't help but feel ashamed. Zhang Xiaohu laughed and said, our Misty School's immortal inheritance has been lost for a long time. It's normal that Deputy Faction Leader One has not seen the portrait of Founding Master Yang. Could it be that all the inner disciples of your school have seen the portrait of Founding Master Yu? Ancestral Master Moon? Nun Jingyi was slightly stunned. She looked at Zhang Xiaohu in a different light. You actually know the name of the founder of the incense cult? Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said nothing. All right, since we know that there's a portrait of the founder of the Immortal Path in the Secret Land, then there must be something extremely important inside. We have a reason to take the risk and enter. Master Changxing laughed and looked around. He walked to the north side of the forest and sat down cross-legged. The other masters also sat down next to him. Nun Jingyi saw this and smiled. She led Peacock and the others to the opposite side of the Dalan Temple and sat down. When she was seated, she didn't forget to say in a low voice, Faction Leader Zhang. All the inner disciples of the incense cult have seen the portrait of Founding Master Yu. Oh? Zhang Xiaohu was taken aback. Then, he remembered what Zhang Xiaohua said about the manor beside the carefree lake. I'm impressed. Zhang Xiaohu cupped his hands and led Li Jian and the others to form a triangle with the other 2 factions. Faction Leader Zhang San couldn't get a word in edgewise. He waited for the 3 factions to sit down before finding a place to lead his disciples. However, when he saw Zhang Xiaohu not far away, he sighed and ordered his disciples to go first. He then walked to the side of the Misty School's disciples. What are you doing here? Lu Qingyang asked angrily. This humble one has something important to discuss with Faction Leader Zhang. Faction Leader Zhang San looked at Zhang Xiaohu behind Lu Qingyang and whispered. There's nothing to discuss. The Misty School and the Righteous Alliance are mortal enemies. Lu Qingyang scolded. Hee, there's no such thing as an eternal enemy in this Jianghu. How can there be an eternal ally? Faction Leader Zhang San chuckled and said, this humble one is just proposing a deal to Faction Leader Zhang. If Faction Leader Zhang doesn't agree, just listen. There's no need to take it seriously. Sigh. Zhang Xiaohu stood up and cupped his hands. Faction Leader Zhang, there's really nothing to discuss between our 2 factions. If it weren't for the importance of this forest, we wouldn't have come at all. Hee. Since Faction Leader Zhang knows the importance of this forest, what if this humble one uses the things in the forest to make a deal with your faction? Faction Leader Zhang San smiled. Zhang Xiaohu pretended to be surprised and said curiously, the things in the forest are extremely important. Could it be that the Righteous Alliance has something more important than these things? If Faction Leader Zhang is interested, this humble one will say it. Otherwise, this humble one will turn back. Faction Leader Zhang, please speak. Hee. This lord really wants to hear it. Zhang Xiaohu smiled. Well, it's like this. The things in the secret plane, the Righteous Alliance owns 25% of them. If faction leader Zhang agrees to this humble one's deal, this humble one will give faction leader Zhang 10% of them. What do you think? Seeing that faction leader Zhang San was somewhat reluctant, Zhang Xiaohu's eyes narrowed and he asked curiously, What do you need this lord to do? Hee, it's very simple. This humble one wants faction leader Zhang to return the thousands of disciples of the Righteous Alliance. What do you think? Bah. Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohu to speak, Lu Qingyang spat out thick phlegm and scolded, Those are thousands of disciples. They're already the disciples of the Misty School's Martial Arts Hall and Great Martial Arts Hall. You just touched your lips and you want me to return them to you? Moreover, we still don't know what's in the secret plane. How can those things be compared to these disciples? That's right, faction leader Zhang. You see, this lord hasn't even opened his mouth and Elder Lu has already seen that this deal is unfair. What else do we have to talk about? Zhang Xiaohu smiled. Faction leader Zhang San was slightly anxious and said in a low voice, Faction leader Zhang, at first glance, this deal is indeed inappropriate. But think about it again. Although my thousands of disciples have already become the disciples of your two halls, but can you be at ease with them? Don't you still have to take out a lot of people to supervise them? Moreover, you still don't feel at ease letting them go. Rather than feeling this uncomfortable, it's better to directly let them go and return them to this humble one. Wouldn't it be better to obtain the treasures in this secret plane? Seeing Zhang Xiaohu's face reveal a strange smile, he continued, Moreover, although the number of these thousands of disciples is large, they're not of one mind. They can't be compared to the disciples cultivated by your Misty School. If you obtain some treasures in the secret plane, such as the chi-generating pill that you just spoke of, then all of a sudden, you can cultivate your trusted disciples into top-notch experts. Wouldn't that be much more convenient than using these thousands of disciples? As Elder Lu said just now, who knows how many treasures there are in this secret plane? Look at the posture of the Dalan Temple, and then look at the posture of the Cult of Incense. Faction leader Zhang, don't you think that there's a huge secret in this secret plane? If our two factions don't work together, then wouldn't we be eaten up by the other two factions until nothing is left? Of course, this humble one can't guarantee that there are enough treasures inside that can be compared to the thousands of disciples. However, for the thousands of useless disciples, I think that faction leader Zhang should take this risk. Zhang Xiaohu revealed a thoughtful expression. Seeing this situation, Alliance leader Zhang San added fuel to the fire. Faction leader Zhang, this is a ladder that our alliance is handing to your noble faction. We know that your Misty School strength has increased greatly, and our Righteous Alliance has suffered heavy losses. However, if our Righteous Alliance stacks everything on a single throw and attacks your Misty School with all our strength, do you think those thousands of disciples you've recruited will listen to you or to our alliance? This, Zhang Xiaohu pretended to panic. Haha, of course, this is just our alliance's assumption. If we really do this, our Righteous Alliance will suffer heavy losses. I'm afraid that we won't be far from being destroyed. This isn't something that our alliance wants to see. Presumably, faction leader Zhang won't do this and let the Dalan Temple and the Cult of Incense reap the benefits. Alliance leader Zhang San laughed. 20%. Zhang Xiaohu seemed to understand Alliance leader Zhang San's meaning. He also knew that Alliance leader Zhang San would fight to the death, so he called out decisively. Alliance leader Zhang San was stunned, then laughed softly. Faction leader Zhang is indeed a smart person. No wonder even Abbess Jingyi had to suffer at your hands. However, our Righteous Alliance only has 25% in total. I don't think there's any hope for those formations and restrictions, so 20% is really too much. Alliance leader Zhang San, these are thousands of disciples. If it were a few hundred, I would have agreed long ago. Why would I waste my breath here? Haha, if it were a few hundred, our alliance wouldn't have come here and lowered our face to make this deal with you. Forget it, who told our alliance to be in the wrong first? 15% is our bottom line. If you don't, we'll turn around right now. Alliance leader Zhang San turned around and was about to leave. Don't. Zhang Xiaohu pulled Alliance leader Zhang San back and laughed. 15% it is. To be honest, these thousands of disciples are troublesome in my misty school. If the Righteous Alliance takes them back, I'll be more than happy. All right, faction leader Zhang San is straightforward. Let's clap our hands and make an oath. Alliance leader Zhang San raised his right hand. Zhang Xiaohu also raised his right hand. Just as they were about to clap hands, Li Jin reminded them, faction leader Zhang San, you must consider this carefully. Zhang Xiaohu was stunned. Alliance leader Zhang San raised his hand, and their palms collided. Alliance leader Zhang San retracted his right hand and cupped his hands. Once this matter is settled, our alliance will send a disciple to receive them. I hope faction leader Zhang San won't go back on his words. You. Zhang Xiaohu retracted his right hand, and a look of regret appeared on his face. Haha. Alliance leader Zhang San chuckled and returned to his disciple's side. He seemed to have a card up his sleeve, and knew that Zhang Xiaohua would definitely agree to it, however. Zhang Xiaohua, who was at the side, was already overjoyed. Please cast a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a collection, a tip. Thank you. -4. Chapter 12:12. Looking at Zhang Xiaohu's remorseful face and his whispered explanation to Li Jin and the others, Zhang Xiaohua almost laughed out loud. After these thousands of disciples returned to the Righteous Tao Alliance, they would become the backbone of the Righteous Tao Alliance. If they were to nurture their own team one by one, in a few years, the Righteous Tao Alliance would already belong to Ethereal Sect even without Ethereal Sect attacking. The Dalan Temple and the Incense Cult seemed to know that the leader of the Alliance of Righteous Sects, Zhang Xiaohu, had something to discuss with the Misty School. Therefore, they lowered their heads and regulated their breathing, ignoring the whispers between Zhang Xiaohu and the elders of the Misty School. Beside the quiet forest, the low, intermittent chirping of insects served as a foil to the mystery of the forest. Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. She extended her divine sense and scanned the area 1,000 feet around the 4 sects. She seemed to have found something. 1,000 feet away, there was a large area of rocks. There were no trees, and the huge rocks reflected the moonlight slightly. Wherever the cold wind blew, the grass between the rocks swayed. There was nothing else. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense swept through the area and found that it was normal. However, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat, and he felt that there was something wrong. Hero 1, cough, cough, Vice Sect Leader 1, about 1,000 feet north of here. Is there a large area of rocks? Zhang Xiaohua asked in a low voice. About that, reporting, Elder, I came here at night from Index Finger Peak. I didn't check the surroundings. When One Hai said apologetically, is there anything strange there? Zhang Xiaohu asked. No. Zhang Xiaohua was about to answer when her expression suddenly changed. She hurriedly said, I have something to do. I'll come back later. As she said that, she put her hand in Zhang Xiaohu's hand and turned around to cast the flying spell. She left on her own. Zhang Xiaohu stared blankly for a moment. Pinching the soft object in his hand, he immediately knew that it was the extremely precious sheepskin scroll. He casually stuffed it into his bosom without a trace. Then, he heard the elder behind him ask in a displeased tone, Sect Leader Zhang, this. Where did fellow Taoist Panin go? Now is the time to cover his tracks. Why did he leave? This. Zhang Xiaohu was stunned. He couldn't say that it was midnight and his brother needed to sleep, right? He could only say, I'll let you know, Grandmaster. Panin, Taoist priest, discovered that something was amiss 1,000 feet away. He personally went to take a look. What? 1,000 zhang away? Master Longevity sucked in a breath of cold air, while Nun Jingyi cried out in alarm. What? Am I wrong? Zhang Xiaohu was shocked. He turned his head and asked Wen Hai, what did you say just now? Sect leader, Taoist Pan, and just asked me if I passed by 1,000 feet away from here. He felt that there was something wrong there. Master Tiangang, Master Yuandao, Master Yuanming, and Nun Shuqing all had ugly expressions. Standing here, one's divine sense could see 1,000 feet away. That was a waste of time. Moreover, he knew the flying spell. This Taoist priest Panin. Which generation's senior master was he? Nun Jingyi's face turned green when she thought of 1,000 feet away. She couldn't understand when the Misty School had such a senior who had such a deep relationship with them. Master Longevity looked into the distance at Zhang Xiaohua, who had long disappeared, and said in a low voice, "With this senior's help, this trip to the secret plane will be safe." Then, everyone sat down in their respective places. However, after waiting for a long time, the full moon had already set in the west. Zhang Xiaohua still hadn't returned. Nun Jingyi wanted to get up several times, but when she saw that Master Longevity didn't move, she restrained herself. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore. Just as she was about to get up, Master Longevity also stood up. The two of them looked at each other and walked to Zhang Xiaohu. They cupped their hands and said, "Sect leader Zhang, we know that your sect's Taoist priest Pan An's cultivation is profound, and there won't be any problems with him going to investigate. However, he's been gone for a long time. I'm afraid there might be some mishap. If we go to help, what do you think?" Zhang Xiaohu smiled bitterly in his heart. What could he say? He could only nod and say, "I'm also surprised. Did something happen to Taoist priest Pan? It's only 1,000 feet away. If something happened, there would have been a commotion. I don't think it's anything urgent. Maybe Taoist priest Pan saw the beautiful moonlight tonight and hid in a corner to admire it. That's also possible." At this point, he saw the strange expressions on the two's faces and immediately said, "Although I'm also worried. My cultivation is shallow and I don't dare to go. What if I trouble the elders of the Dalan Temple and the incense cult? I'm also worried that something might go wrong." Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohu to finish speaking, Master Longevity waved his hand. Great Master Chang Gung and Master Chang Xing floated up into the air and went straight to the south, 1,000 feet away. Since the two great masters have gone, I'm relieved. Zhang Xiaohu stopped nagging. 1,000 feet away was actually not far. Just as Zhang Xiaohu stopped talking and turned to look to the south, everyone frowned slightly. They wanted to know what Taoist priest Pan had discovered. Suddenly, two extremely bright lights came from 1,000 feet away. Then, there was a faint cry of surprise, followed by a rumbling sound. Hearing this familiar rumbling sound, Master Longevity's expression changed immediately. Shundao sect? That's right. It's between the clouds and the water. Master Jing also gritted her teeth. This Baiyinshiu is really everywhere. Changgung, Changxing? Master Tiangong's expression also changed. Master Yuandao waved his hand and pulled out the demon-subduing pestle from his back. Master Yuaming also threw his hand, and the Mao bead also turned into the size of a plate and flew into the air. However, before the two of them could fly 100 feet away, they heard a voice in the distance. "Don't worry, great masters. We'll come." Wasn't that the voice of Baiyinshiu between the clouds and the water? The two great masters, Yuandao and Yuanming, paused in the air for a moment before flying back to stand beside Master Tiangyang. They didn't put away the demon-subduing pestle in their hands and the Mao bead in the air. Master Longevity and Master Jing looked coldly at Baiyinshiu, who was flying over from afar, and Changgung and Changxing, who were captured by Hao Feng and Taoist Hao Yu. They didn't say a word. When Baiyinshiu flew closer, he cupped his hands and smiled. "So the incense cult, Dalan Temple, and Misty School, other than my 4 immortal Tao sects, between the clouds and the water are all saber-rising. Why is the Righteous Alliance also here? Today's moonlight is beautiful, but how did this barren mountain attract the most famous 4 immortal Tao sects in Jianghu? Baiyinshiu, my Dalan Temple's Changgung and Master Changxing. How are they?" Master Changxing couldn't help but ask when he saw the two great masters being captured and their divine sense blocked by Hao Yun. It's nothing. They just suffered some minor injuries. Baiyinshiu chuckled. Our disciples between the clouds and the water were admiring the moon. But these two great masters came to disturb us and disturbed our mood. Taoist Hao Yun just punished them slightly. The mountain river map? Master Jing clenched her teeth. That day on Mount Yao, Bai Zhangmin used the mountain river map to hide the figures of the disciples between the clouds and the water. He wanted to seize the initiative when the immortal mansion of Mount Yao appeared. Who knew that the immortal mansion wasn't on Mount Yao, but in the void above Mount Yao. Bai Zhangmin's mountain river map exposed his whereabouts. Why didn't I think of that? This mountain river map is the best at hiding one's aura. With the surrounding terrain, even the divine sense of the immortal path can't detect it. Hehe, Master Jingyi is really brilliant, but I also didn't expect that these two monks would suddenly appear when we were hiding well. Where's Master Panin? Zhang Xiaohu asked in a timely manner. Master Panin? Bai Yinxia was stunned. He shook his head and said, Master Panin flew away from us? Zhang Xiaohu frowned and turned to look at Master Chang Sheng, expressing his innocence. At this time, Master Chang Sheng didn't want to investigate further. He only sneered and said, Between the clouds and the water captured two great masters of my Dalan temple. Do you want to declare war on my Dalan temple? I wouldn't dare, I wouldn't dare, Bai Yinxiu replied with a smile in his eyes. I'm not talented. I know that my words carry little weight, so I have no choice but to ask the two great masters to be my bargaining chip. As long as Master Chang Sheng agrees to my conditions, I'll immediately release the two great masters. Humph, Master Chang Sheng sneered. My Dalan temple can be easily coerced? Bai Yinxiu, what do you want? Please say it quickly. If it's feasible, we can agree to it. You should leave as soon as you get the benefits. Otherwise, our four sects will join forces and destroy your descendants between the clouds and the water. Hehe, Abish Jingyi, why are you so angry? What else could I have come here for? I just want to enter the secret land with you and get some benefits. What secret land? Bai Zhangmin, what is he talking about? Why can't I understand? Master Jingyi laughed. Is that so? Master Jingyi, you're not being honest. You're bullying my descendants between the clouds and the water. Have they ever been destroyed? Bai Yinxiu laughed and waved his hand. Pinger, come here. Pinger. Everyone was stunned. From afar, a figure slowly walked over using Qinggong. Looking at the figure, his Qinggong was very poor. Presumably, his martial arts weren't high either. However, when that person walked into the arena, the Righteous Alliance's alliance leader Zhang San shouted, Situ Ping? You're actually a disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water? Then, Misty Schools 1-1 High was also shocked. Leader Situ? Then, he shook his head and said, I really didn't expect it. Everyone, who do you think this person is? It's the leader of the evil tiger gang, Situ Ping, who was led by Wan Jianfeng's disciple, Ma Xiangyang, when 1-1 High and Yiming Jusher entered the forest for the first time. How could it be you? Situ Ping. You actually dared to deceive this old man? Alliance Master Zhang San repeated this sentence. When he joined forces with the incense cult and the Dalan temple to force Openg to death, he had already lost sight of Situ Ping. At that time, he had sent many people to look for him, but there was no news. Later, when the Righteous Alliance took over the Misty School, there was no need for Situ Ping to exist anymore. Thus, he threw this person to the back of his mind. What he didn't expect was that Situ Ping would appear when he least expected it. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. -4. Chapter 12-13. Situ Ping, you're the leader of the evil tiger gang, but you're also a disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water. You told us about Wan Jianfeng, the sheepskin scroll, and the forest. Was it by Yinxiu's order? When we confronted the Dalan temple and the incense cult, we couldn't find you. Were you taken away by Between the Clouds and the Water? Alliance leader Zhang is indeed a smart person. It's exactly as you said. However, the Evil Tiger Gang and the Evil Tiger Mountain Villa have been used by the Alliance of Righteous Sects for a long time. I miss them very much. I've always wanted to go back and see if they're still the same as before. Bai Zhangmin, you're too calculative. Alliance leader Zhang San sighed. Alliance leader Zhang San is too kind. Ping only found out about it by chance. That's why he hurriedly reported it to me. If I had known about it earlier, you wouldn't have been here. Actually, Bai Zhangmin didn't have to use so many tricks. He could have just destroyed the 4 sects and obtained the 4 sheepskin scrolls. Alliance leader Zhang San said, puzzled. That's what I thought, but Alliance Leader O of the Misty School and Young Rupiang are both descendants of the Immortal Path sects. If I acted rashly, between the clouds and the water would have been exposed. If your three sects caught wind of this, with the strength of your three sects, between the clouds and the water, would I still be safe and sound? She then said hatefully, to be honest, I've also done a lot of tricks in the other three sections. Unfortunately, my luck wasn't good. None of the sheepskin scrolls fell into the hands of between the clouds and the water. So, today, I had no choice but to do this. Alliance leader Zhang San gritted his teeth. He had been plotting since he got the information about the sheepskin scrolls from Situ Ping, as well as the secret of the Immortal Path. The destruction of the Misty School was also part of Bai Yinxiu's plan. Now that the incense cult, the Dalan Temple, and the Misty School were greatly weakened, the alliance of righteous sects was even more miserable. This was all thanks to Bai Yinxiu of Between the Clouds and the Water. How could he not bear a grudge? Bai Yinxiu of Between the Clouds and the Water was the instigator of the decline of the alliance of righteous sects. Needless to say, Bai Yinxiu had been labeled as such by alliance leader Zhang San. Then, alliance leader Zhang San said coldly, "What? Bai Zhangmin, what do you mean? You've been plotting for so long, involving the famous four sects in Jianghu, and now you've captured the two masters of the Dalan Temple. Are you planning to take the treasure for yourself?" Haha, alliance leader Zhang San, you're exaggerating. How can I, between the clouds and the water, have such a big appetite? Between the clouds and the water is not the Beidou School, and this secret plane is not the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. How can I, the leader of this sect, take all the treasure for myself? Then, Bai Yinxiu looked at Master Chang Sheng and Nun Jingyi and said with a smile, Between the Clouds and the Water is also a big sect with immortal inheritance, so we're also qualified to enter this secret plane. I don't have many requests. I just want to enter the secret plane with the alliance of righteous sects and the Misty School and have the same treatment as them. Nun Jingyi was a little hesitant. She looked at Master Chang Sheng and said in a low voice, the two masters Changgung and Changxing are in the hands of Between the Clouds and the Water. Master, please make the decision on this matter. Master Chang Sheng pondered for a moment and told her about the agreement between the sects and said, if Between the Clouds and the Water joins, each sect should get 20%. Master Chang Sheng, you can't say that. Between the Clouds and the Water doesn't have a sheepskin scroll. How can she get 20%? I'm afraid 5% is already a lot. Alliance Master Zhang San shouted. 5%? Bai Yinxiu sneered. Alliance Master Zhang San has a good plan. Could it be that you're treating Between the Clouds and the Water like a beggar? Hee. Then how many places do you want? Alliance Master Zhang San also sneered. 20%. Bai Yinxiu glanced at Changxing and Changgung and said decisively, Between the Clouds and the Water wanted 20%, so the other four sects naturally also wanted 20%. The Alliance of Righteous Sects wanted to give the Misty School 15%, so the Alliance of Righteous Sects only had 5% left. How could Alliance Master Zhang San agree? 20%? Ha ha ha. Alliance Master Zhang San laughed so hard that his waist almost bent. He pointed at Bai Yinxiu, shook his head and said, You're really imaginative. Seeing Alliance Master Zhang San laugh, Master Changsheng frowned, thought for a moment and said, Alliance Master Zhang San, how about this? My Dalan Temple will give up 5% to make up for your Alliance of Righteous Sects losses. What do you think? Oh, so that's how it is. Alliance Master Zhang San was stunned, then nodded slightly and said with a smile, If Master Zhang San says so, our Alliance of Righteous Sects will naturally agree. Hearing this, Master Chang Sheng breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to ask Bai Yinxiu to let them go, he heard Alliance Master Zhang San say, But our Alliance of Righteous Sects fell at the hands of Between the Clouds and the Water. If they get the benefits, how will our Alliance of Righteous Sects have a place to stand in the future? So, please understand, Master Chang Sheng, today, I can't agree to let Between the Clouds and the Water enter the secret ground. Zhang San. Master Chang Sheng scolded, Don't you dare challenge this old monk's bottom line. Bai Yinxiu was also shocked. He looked at the few martial arts disciples of the Alliance of Righteous Sects with interest and said slowly, Alliance Master Zhang San, aren't you afraid of being killed by the elders of Between the Clouds and the Water? With just these few martial arts disciples? Hee, of course, Between the Clouds and the Water has the ability to do so. Our Alliance of Righteous Sects also has no power to fight back. But, can the Dalan Temple agree? Can the Incense Sect agree? Can the Misty School agree? Then, he bowed to Master Chang Sheng and said, Master, I'm afraid that I've made things difficult for you. However, without my parchment, I'm afraid that this secret ground is just a flower in the mirror, the moon in the water. Then, as if he thought of something, he slapped his forehead and said, Oh, look at my memory. Where did I hide the parchment? I really forgot about it. But, it's true. Other than myself, no one else knows where it is hidden. If I really forgot this secret ground, I'll never be able to enter it again. Oh, I remember again. Master Chang Sheng, when we leave the secret ground tomorrow morning, won't the Dalan Temple, the Incense Sect, and the Misty School escort me to a safe place? The elders' faces were ashen. Nun Jingyi was deep in thought, and Zhang Xiaohu looked on coldly. Bai Yinxiu was in a difficult position. There was only the sound of the wind blowing. The moon was also covered by the thick, dark clouds that were blown by the wind, and no light could be seen. The wind gradually became colder. Little by little, the small snowflakes that were like grains of salt slowly fell down. After an unknown period of time, Master Chang Sheng sighed, stepped forward and said, How about this, Bai Zhangmin? You also know that without the parchment of the Righteous Alliance, none of us can enter the secret ground. If Alliance Master Chang Sheng doesn't want your sect to enter, can your sect wait outside? My Dalan Temple can give 20% to your sect, leaving only 5%. Bai Yinxiu narrowed her eyes, as if the snowflakes had hit her eyelashes. She thought for a moment, looked up at the sky and said, This damn weather. Why is it suddenly snowing? Master Chang Sheng didn't answer, but Bai Yinxiu murmured again, It should be early in the morning now. In another 2 hours, the sky will be bright. If we can't find a place to enter the forest when the sky is bright, I'm afraid that even with the parchment, we won't be able to enter the forest. Master Chang Sheng's face changed again, and he said coldly, Bai Zhangmin, what do you mean? Bai Yinxiu stroked her hair and said with a smile, What can I mean? I'm just reminding Master that tonight is a cloudy day, and there's heavy snow. The sunlight may not appear, and we may not be able to find a place to enter the forest. Bai Zhangmin, you're mistaken. This is us, the 4 sections. It doesn't include Between the Clouds and the Water. Alliance Master Chang Sheng said fearlessly. Then, Bai Zhangmin, do you think 20% is too little? Master Chang Sheng suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, Yes, it's a little too little. We Between the Clouds and the Water are also from a large immortal sect, and we also rushed into the Forbidden Ground and the Formation. Master won't let us enter the secret ground. So what does this so-called 20% mean to us Between the Clouds and the Water? Bai Yinxiu said frankly. Bai Zhangmin, please speak frankly. Master Chang Sheng lost his patience. All right, since Master wants me to speak frankly, then I won't be polite. Bai Yinxiu said as she stretched out her hand and made a 5 sign. 50%? Master Chang Sheng shook his head. The Dalan Temple only has 25%. This 50%. I definitely can't agree. Haha, Master, you're mistaken. Bai Yinxiu said with a smile like a flower. The 50% I'm talking about is 50% of all the treasures that the Dalan Temple obtained in the secret ground. Roar, Master Chang Sheng roared like a lion raising its head. Bai Zhangmin, you've gone too far. A gust of wind blew from Master Chang Sheng, blowing straight toward Bai Yinxiu. The sound also shook Bai Yinxiu's head slightly. Just as Bai Yinxiu moved slightly, Master Chang Sheng moved. He stretched out his hand, and his 5 fingers directly grabbed toward Bai Yinxiu's face. Be careful, Master. Taoist Hao Feng, who was beside Bai Yinxiu, reminded. As soon as Master Chang Sheng roared, Bai Yinxiu felt that something was wrong. Without waiting for him to open his eyes, his body floated up and flew backward. Seeing this, Master Chang Sheng's body did not change. He urged the vital energy in his meridians and also floated up. Then, a suction force appeared between his 5 fingers out of thin air, covering Bai Yinxio's face. Bai Yinxio was even more shocked when he saw this. He blurted out, "Dragon controlling hand?" Actually, how could this be an ordinary dragon controlling hand? When the suction force covered Bai Yinxio's face, an indescribable throbbing appeared in Bai Yinxio's heart. It was as if the palm was gradually expanding, so big that it grabbed Bai Yinxio's entire gaze. This is bad, seeing Master Chang Sheng use such a method. How could Bai Yinxio not know how powerful it was? As his body retreated rapidly, he was about to take out a Dharma artifact from his back. However, Master Chang Sheng's palm was right in front of Bai Yinxio's face. Bai Yinxio did not even have time to retreat. How could he have the time to take out a Dharma artifact? -4. Chapter 12:14. Zhang Xiaohu was shocked by the sudden change. Before he could see the fight between Master Chang Sheng and Bai Yinxio clearly, he heard a 7-colored brilliance flash beside Bai Yinxio, followed by a miserable scream. When Zhang Xiaohu focused his gaze, he saw a 7-colored ring flashing past Master Chang Sheng's chest. It was Master Tiangang's Wheel of Expansion. When Master Yuandao and Master Yuaming took out their respective magic tools, Master Tiangang also took out his Wheel of Mortal Evolution. However, he hid his traces and stayed close to the ground, so that Master Daoist Haofeng of the Water Cloud sect would not notice him. Now that he saw Master Chang Sheng take action, how could Master Tiangang not know that this matter could not be settled peacefully? With a hand seal, the mortal wheel flew up. Daoist Haofeng had just warned Bai Yinxio, and did not expect that the mortal wheel would fly into his back from the ground. How powerful was the mortal wheel? As soon as it came into contact with Daoist Haofeng, it immediately drilled into his flesh. Not to mention that Daoist Haofeng did not have a protective light shield. Even if he had one, it would have been damaged if he was caught off guard. As a result, the Wheel of Mortal Expansion spun and flew out from Daoist Haofeng's chest. Daoist Haofeng loosened his grip and Grandmaster Chang Xing fell to the ground. Grandmaster Yuan Ming pointed his finger and the Maomu Pearl shot towards Daoist Hao Yu, who was still holding Grandmaster Chang Geng. Junior brother, Hao Yu was right beside Master Chang Geng. Seeing that Master Chang Geng was killed by the Wheel of Expansion before he could save him in time, his eyes were already wide open. He shouted with a ruthless look in his eyes. Seeing the Mao Pearl flying towards him, his hand moved slightly and a defensive jade talisman was shot out. His other hand reached out slightly and grabbed Great Master Chang Geng's throat. Then, he exerted force. Great Master Chang Geng's head tilted and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that he was dead. Grandmaster Yuan Ming originally wanted to save Grandmaster Chang Geng, but he didn't expect Daoist Hao Yu to be so ruthless. He didn't care about his own life and wanted to kill Chang Geng. He couldn't help but grit his teeth and fiercely activated the true qi in his meridians. Grandmaster Yuan Ming's injuries hadn't healed yet, and now that he activated his true qi, his meridians were injured again. The Molu Pearl suddenly expanded, and with a bang sound, it hit Daoist Hao Yu's back with extreme speed. Master Hao Yu's defensive light barrier had not been completely released. After being hit by the Mao Pearl, it immediately shattered into pieces and dissipated in the air. Master Hao Yu also spat out a large mouthful of blood. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. However, Master Hao Yu stubbornly held on. He waved the lightning hammer in his hand, and a bolt of lightning appeared out of thin air, flashing towards the Mao Pearl. Just as Master Yuan Ming was about to use the Mao Pearl to save Great Master Chang Geng, Master Yuan Dao also waved his demon-vanquishing pestle and directly flew to Master Chang Xing's side. At this moment, Nun Shuqing was shocked. She also waved the plain cloud-white flag in her hand, and countless small white lotuses appeared around Master Chang Xing, protecting him tightly. Then, when he saw Daoist Bright Moon snapping Daoist Chang Geng's throat, Daoist Yuandao roared, "Go!" The demon fall pestle immediately turned into a stream of light and slammed towards Daoist Bright Moon. "How dare you!" Master Hao Yun shouted from the side. His tone was also filled with grief. He threw a small black shadow in his hand upwards. Dong! A huge tremor came from that black shadow, causing everyone's ears to buzz. Heaven-shaking drum? Seeing this, Master Tian Gang laughed instead of getting angry. This heaven-shaking drum has already been damaged. What's there to show off? It's a pity that you don't have the heaven-shaking hammer. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to beat this heaven-shaking drum. We would have to avoid it. Master Tian Gang laughed loudly. The mortal wheel whistled as it flew towards Master Hao Yun. Is that so? Master Hao Yun laughed nastily. He reached into his bosom and took out a short object that was only 3 inches long. Heaven-shaking hammer? Master Tian Gang was slightly stunned. It was obvious that he had never seen a heaven-shaking hammer before. At this moment, the mortal wheel also approached Master Hao Yun's body. Back to Master Changsheng and Bai Yinqiu. Master Changsheng clawed at Bai Yinqiu's face. A powerful gravitational force was born from Master Changsheng's palm. Bai Yinqiu was greatly shocked and quickly retreated. However, Master Changsheng's levitation technique was only slightly better than Bai Yinqiu's. The 5 fingers were getting closer and closer to Bai Yinqiu's face. When he retreated, Bai Yinqiu's hair that was coiled into a bun on top of his head also scattered. Beautiful hair like clouds was originally a kind of beauty. However, at this moment, it became Bai Yinqiu's shortcoming. That strand of black hair fell into Master Changsheng's hand. A ruthless look appeared in Master Changsheng's eyes. He wrapped his fingers around the black hair and gently pulled it back. Ouch! A scream came out of Bai Yinqiu's mouth. However, no matter how painful it was, Bai Yinqiu did not dare to stop. Bai Yinqiu stretched out his left hand and was about to use his true energy to cut off the hair. At this moment, she only felt the strength in Master Changsheng's hand suddenly increase. She did not dare to hesitate anymore and fiercely shook her head. Suddenly, a large strand of hair was pulled out from Bai Yinqiu's scalp by Master Changsheng. With a whoosh, Bai Yinqiu sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, with a bang, Bai Yinqiu felt that he seemed to have bumped into someone from behind. Bai Yinqiu did not think too much and grabbed that person with his backhand. Lord Sect Leader, that person exclaimed. It was Situ Ping, who had hidden here because he saw a conflict. Bai Yinqiu did not care who she was. He used his strength and shook it forward, blocking Situ Ping's head in front of Master Changsheng's hand. Then, with the force of Situ Ping's forward push, Bai Yinqiu's figure flipped and floated far away, while Master Changsheng was blocked in front of Situ Ping. Amitabha! Excellent! Master Changsheng chanted the name of Buddha. He was merciless. Before Situ Ping could breathe, he pointed his finger. Situ Ping's head was easily torn apart like a watermelon. Situ Ping's corpse fell to the ground. Ha ha ha! Bai Yinqiu, who had escaped far away, laughed loudly and said, "A monk is merciful. Master Changsheng, you have broken your vow to kill. Subduing demons and eliminating devils is the mercy of Buddha. This old monk has never abstained from killing. Bai Yinqiu, hand over your life." Master Changsheng was really angry. Seeing that Bai Yinqiu was far away, he took off the prayer beads hanging in front of his chest and threw them into the air. The prayer beads also expanded with the wind, covering Bai Yinqiu like a fishing net. Hee, Bai Yinqiu laughed coldly. He took out a bow from somewhere. It was the heaven-shaking bow that she used in the Huayu Palace of the Spreading Incense cult. Seeing Bai Yinqiu draw the bow, he did not knock an arrow. He released his fingers, and with a bang, a ray of red brilliance appeared from the bowstring. It went straight toward Alliance Master Zhang San, who was dumbfounded. You! Master Changsheng was slightly angry. Just as he was about to use the prayer beads to block Alliance Master Zhang San, he saw a black shadow as fast as lightning flash in front of Alliance Master Zhang San. It hit the red brilliance. With a bang, the brilliance scattered. What appeared before everyone's eyes was a long whip that looked like a python. One end of the long whip was in Abbess Jingyi's hand. Good, Abbess Jingyi, look after Zhang San. Master Changsheng was overjoyed. He activated his true qi and cast the spell in his hand. The prayer beads whistled and covered Bai Yinqiu's head. After Abbess Jingyi defeated Bai Yinqiu's attack, she stood in front of Alliance Master Zhang San. With the peach blossom whip in her hand, she looked around and shouted, "Junior Sister Xuezhen, Bring the disciples of the spreading incense cult over and protect the disciples of the righteous alliance. Then, she shouted to Zhang Xiaohu, Sect Master Zhang San, the situation is critical. I'm sure you can see that Sect Master Zhang San is a person who has stepped into the path of immortality. The people of the righteous alliance are protecting Sect Master Zhang San. If anything happens to Sect Master Zhang San, none of us will be able to enter the secret ground. Zhang Xiaohu looked around, and then looked at the battle not far away that he could not participate in. He nodded slightly. Thus, the disciples of the spreading incense cult quickly walked to the left side of the righteous alliance disciples with swords in hand. The people of the Misty School also walked over to the right side of the righteous alliance disciples. However, they were still some distance away from the righteous alliance disciples. One could see the dissatisfaction in their hearts. 3 Zhang to the left of Master Chang Sheng. Master Yuandao's demon subduing pestle flew towards Taoist Hao Yu. The lightning hammer in Hao Yu's hand had just sent Master Yuanming's Molu Pearl flying. It was already too late for him to activate his true qi. He had no choice but to turn around and use the lightning hammer to strike the demon subduing pestle. A huge force came from the demon subduing pestle, causing Taoist Hao Yu's arm to go numb and his body to retreat a few steps. Not good. Without waiting for Taoist Hao Yu to stabilize his body, the Molu Pearl in his divine sense came crashing down towards Taoist Hao Yu's head. Taoist Hao Yu did not dare to be negligent. Lowering his hands, his body squatted on the ground and exerting force with both hands. His entire body shot out like an arrow in the dark night, sticking close to the ground and flying towards the right. But at this moment, Taoist Hao Yu's face suddenly changed. He tried his best to stop his body and head towards another direction. But just now, he had used all his strength. How could he move away just because he wanted to? With a pu sound, the demon subduing pestle transformed into a flying sword and appeared in the darkness. It was the demon subduing pestle that Taoist Hao Yu had blocked earlier. Master Yuandao pointed at it and buried it in the direction where Taoist Hao Yu's body was retreating. Taoist Hao Yu was caught off guard and was struck by the demon subduing pestle. That demon subduing pestle had pierced right into Taoist Hao Yu's head, smashing it into pieces. Although Taoist Hao Yu was already dead, his rapidly moving body did not stop. Sticking close to the ground, he slid for a long distance. At this moment, the sky was already bright. The salt-like snowflakes were gradually getting bigger. A thin layer of grayish-white snow covered the ground. Taoist Hao Yu's body cleared away the layer of snow on the ground, revealing the withered grass under the snow. His blood stains had dyed the withered grass red. At this moment, a dong sound of a drum sounded. It was like a shock to everyone's heart, causing everyone's heart to jump for no reason. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect it. Please tip it. Thank you. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian.com to cast a recommendation vote or monthly vote. -4. Chapter 12:15. This, Master Yuandao and Master Yuanming joined hands to kill Taoist Hao Yu and were about to deal with Bai Yinxiu when they heard this drum. They unconsciously looked at each other, their eyes filled with horror. Dong. Another sound followed. Everyone's heart was still beating along with the sound of the drum, and many people's faces were flushed red. Just as the drum sounded, Master Tiangong's mortal wheel also arrived in front of Taoist Hao Yun. However, the vibration of the drum seemed to have set up a layer of invisible defense around Taoist Hao Yun. When the mortal wheel came into contact with the invisible restriction, it couldn't fly any further. It tried several times, but it couldn't fly even an inch closer. Thump, 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 thump. One sound, two sounds, one sound after another. The drum beats became more and more concentrated, and the faces of the people present became bright red. First, they started to jump along with the drum beats. It was as if everything in the field was controlled by the drum beats. Quick, break his defense, or else we'll all die from heartbeat. Master Tiangang shouted. Woo woo. 2 consecutive sounds rang out. The Molu bead and the demon subduing pestle flew over, each striking the restriction formed around Taoist Master Hao Yun. No light could be seen. But no matter how hard they tried, they were unable to break through. Pa! With a clear shout, Nun Jingyi's whip flew over again and lashed around Taoist Hao Yun. Nun Shuqing, who had just rescued Master Chongqing, moved the plain cloud-white flag in her hand, and countless small lotus flowers appeared around Taoist Hao Yun. Each flower emitted a bright light and disappeared in a flash. Taoist Hao Yun, who was holding the heaven-shaking drum and heaven-smashing hammer, had a green light flickering on his face. His forehead was already covered in sweat, but when he activated the heaven-shaking drum, he saw the death of his two junior brothers, and his eyes were filled with anger. Now that he saw the various magic tools attacking him, he knew that today would be the end of a life and death struggle. After the green light faded from Taoist Master Hao Yun's face, the beating of the drums became even more intense. Dong dong dong, dong 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 dong. Among the people present, those with profound cultivations leapt into the air and clenched their teeth, desperately striking the magic tools in their hands towards Taoist Master Hao Yun. Those with shallow cultivations used their hands to cover their ears and circulated all the power in their bodies to resist the beating of the drums. However, the sound of the heaven-shaking drum did not seem to be heard by the ears, but directly struck their hearts. In the Righteous Alliance, several martial arts experts were lying on the ground, their bodies rolling nonstop. Their hands were covering their ears, and their teeth were grinding. It was as if all the blood in their bodies had gathered on their faces. Their faces were red, as if they were about to bleed. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The Righteous Tao Alliance members could no longer hold on. After this loud sound, blood slowly flowed out from their 7 orifices. The hands that were covering their ears also slowly loosened. Their eyes that were filled with fear opened wide as they stared blankly at the falling snowflakes in the sky. Gradually, they lost consciousness. Looking at the Righteous Alliance's alliance Master Zhongsan, he could no longer hold back. When the Righteous Alliance members fell to the ground, he immediately sat down cross-legged and silently circulated his heart technique, circulating the inner strength in his body to resist the beating of the drums. But the heaven-shaking drum was a famous weapon of the immortal path. Even Master Tiangang would be wary of it. How could martial arts' inner strength resist it? Seeing his heartbeat quicken and his face bleeding, Alliance Master Zhang San panicked. He immediately reached into his clothes and took out a scarlet-red triangular flag. The strange red color of the flag was extremely obvious in this snowy night. Holding the flag in his left hand, Alliance Master Zhang San took out a green stone with his right hand. He bit his tongue, and with a pub sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood onto the flag. After absorbing the blood, the flag suddenly emitted a blood-red light, following which a faint red and black smoke was formed. The moment the smoke appeared, Alliance Master Zhang San threw the flag into the air and held the stone in his left hand. His right hand moved slightly, and his mouth muttered. The smoke followed Alliance Master Zhang San's fingers and slowly expanded, gradually enveloping Alliance Master Zhang San within it. On the left side of the Righteous Alliance, the disciples of the Fragrance Sect, Peacock, Qin Shun, and Yu Yin, were all red in the face. They gritted their teeth and their bodies trembled slightly. However, they still sat cross-legged. The weak qi in their bodies circulated rapidly, barely resisting the terrifying beating of the drums. Nun Shuezhen, who was sitting next to the 3 of them, was just as relaxed. She was also sitting cross-legged, but she first covered her ears with her hands, and then she took them down again. Just as she was about to adjust her breathing, she couldn't help but stretch out her hands and cover her ears again. After a few times, blood gradually seeped out of her mouth and nose. On the right side of the Righteous Alliance, the disciples of the Misty School had already felt that something was wrong when Taoist Master Hao Yun took out the heaven-shaking drum and the heaven-smashing hammer. They immediately sat cross-legged. Zhang Xiaohu sat at the front, circulating the Kuren Pong transformation mantra in his meridians. The mantra of the Kuren Pong transformation mantra was the most important thing about fighting in the air, flapping one's wings, and trying to compete with the heavens. As for this shocking drum sound, it was like a hurricane in a dark rain. Wave after wave, Zhang Xiaohu still had a sliver of leeway to resist it. As for Li Jian and the others, although their internal energy was high, they were unable to resist the beating of the heaven-shaking drum. After a few beats, they were already bleeding from their ears and noses, rolling on the ground. They were not much stronger than the disciples of the Righteous Alliance. With a loud dong, just as the hearts of the Righteous Alliance disciples were shattered, Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, Wen Hai, and Lu Yueming's bodies also shook violently. Large mouthfuls of blood flowed out from their noses and mouths. Their eyes and ears were also bloodshot. Zhang Xiaohu also jumped along with the beating of the drum. His hands involuntarily went to cover his ears, but just as his hands passed by his chest, he suddenly remembered the rabbit jade talisman that Zhang Xiaohua had given them at Yao Mountain. At this time, he couldn't care about anything else and shouted, "Elderly, quickly, Xiaohua gave me the jade talisman." As he spoke, he took the jade talisman from his chest. Without even looking at it clearly, he immediately exerted force in his hand. With a pa sound, the jade talisman that didn't look like a rabbit was crushed. A faint golden light flashed and a thin layer of light appeared around Zhang Xiaohu. With the formation of the light shield, the deafening beating of the drum gradually decreased. In the end, although the sound of the drum was deafening, it could only be heard in the ears and could no longer directly penetrate into Zhang Xiaohu's heart. Sigh, Zhang Xiaohu let out a sigh of relief. When he hurriedly looked back, he couldn't help but be shocked. At this time, Li Jian had already crushed the jade talisman and was in the process of forming a light shield. However, Lu Qingyang and the other two were already vomiting blood. Although they had already taken out the jade talisman, they didn't have the strength to crush it. Zhang Xiaohu didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly helped them crush the jade talisman one by one. Only when he saw the 3 faint golden light shields rise did he breathe a sigh of relief. At this time, Li Jian also stood up and hurriedly went over to check the pulse of the 3 people. Only then did he feel relieved. Looking at Zhang Xiaohu and the 3 people lying on the ground, his eyes were full of complex emotions. Dong, 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 dong. A series of rapid drum beats. At this time, in the ears of Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jian, it was no different from the usual drum beats. On the side of the fragrance cult, Senior Nun Shuezhen screamed and vomited a large mouthful of blood before falling to the ground. It was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Peacock and the other 2 also began to bleed from their 7 orifices. Righteous Tao Alliance. In the red and black mist, Alliance Master Zhang San's face was pale and his facial features were somewhat ferocious. His 7 orifices were also oozing blood. Pu pu pu. 3 inaudible sounds of blood spurting out were already covered by the sound of the heaven-shaking drum. However, the person who spurted out blood was not someone else, but Tao Master Hao Yun, who was beating the heaven-shaking drum. These 3 mouthfuls of blood were spat out on the heaven-shaking drum. The heaven-shaking drum absorbed the 3 mouthfuls of blood essence, and its brilliance became even brighter. It slightly expanded by half. As for Tao Master Hao Yun, who spurted out the blood essence, after a flash of green, his face suddenly became pale, and he seemed to have become thinner and weaker. Reverse blood-corroding essence? Master Tiangang shouted, "Quick, Yuan Dao, use the demon-subduing pestle to attack. This brat is already strong on the outside but weak on the inside. We need to hold on for a while longer. Even if we can't kill him, the backlash from the heaven-shaking drum will definitely kill him." Master Tiangang's words were extremely true. The heaven-shaking drum and the heaven-breaking hammer were ancient divine weapons. They were not something that ordinary Qi practitioners could wield. This was also the reason why Tao Master Hao Yun did not take out the heaven-shaking drum earlier. Just the heaven-shaking drum alone? Tao Master Hao Yun would not be able to recover his Yuan Qi for several months after using it, not to mention the heaven-breaking hammer. Tao Master Hao Yun was also injured. If not for the fact that Tao Master Hao Yu and Tao Master Hao Feng were both killed, he would definitely not have used the heaven-shaking drum at the same time. Seeing that Master Tiangang and the other great enemies were not injured and only a few ordinary disciples of the Righteous Alliance died, Tao Master Hao Yun could not help but feel anxious. He knew that he could not hold on for long. He immediately used a secret art similar to the reverse blood-corroding essence, channeling all of his Yuan Qi into the heaven-shaking drum. When Master Yuandao and Master Yuaming heard Master Tiangang's words, they forcefully suppressed the blood in their chest and also circulated their qi. With a wave of their hands, the demon-subduing pestle slammed down like a mountain. The Mao Pearl was like a full moon as it struck towards Dao Master Hao Yun's back. Master Tiangang's Wheel of Evolution also spun rapidly, crashing towards Dao Master Hao Yun's chest. At the same time, Nun Shu Qing unfurled the plain cloud-white flag, and many small lotus flowers also attacked Dao Master Hao Yun. Nun Jingyi's 7 orifices were bleeding slightly, and her limbs were weak. She held the peach blossom whip in her hand. Just like Master Chang Sheng, who was bleeding from his 7 orifices, she attacked Bai Yinxiu. All of you, go to hell. Dao Master Hao Yun roared loudly. His face rapidly shrunk, and his entire body's qi essence was flowing away. With a wave of his right hand, he raised the heaven-breaking hammer in his hand and struck towards the heaven-shaking drum. Master Tiangang's face was as red as blood. At this moment, it was slightly pale. He knew that this strike contained all of Dao Master Hao Yun's cultivation. Regardless of whether other people lived or died, this Dao Master Hao Yun would definitely die. However, if this strike hit the heaven-shaking drum and the sound of the drums spread out, how many people would survive? Would be hard to say. -4. Chapter 12:16. Thinking of this, Master Tiangang looked at Taoist Master Hao Yun, who was struggling to hit the heaven-shaking drum with the heaven-breaking mallet as if he was lifting a heavy object. He also shouted loudly and quickly formed a seal with his hands. From afar, it looked like a blooming lotus flower. Quick! Master Tiangang pointed his finger, and the mortal wheel that was about to reach Taoist Master Hao Yun's chest suddenly jumped up and disappeared. Then, it appeared below Taoist Master Hao Yun's heaven-breaking mallet. With a wong sound, it charged towards the heaven-breaking mallet. Bang! The 2 magic treasures collided with each other. The mortal wheel was sent flying horizontally far away, while the heaven-pounding hammer was also knocked up. Of course, it was only knocked up half a foot. Taoist Master Hao Yun's arm moved again, and the heaven-breaking mallet continued to strike. Just as the heaven-breaking mallet was about to hit the heaven-shaking drum, a bang sound was heard as the Molu Pearl hit Taoist Master Hao Yun's back. Taoist Master Hao Yun's body moved slightly, and with a series of crackling sounds, all the lotus flowers on the plain cloud-white flag exploded. Finally, with a boom sound, the demon-subduing mallet that was as light as a feather fell on Taoist Master Hao Yun's head. At this time, the drum was silent, and the heaven-shaking drum's defense was gone. Taoist Master Hao Yun's body had been broken through by the Mola Pearl and the plain cloud-white flag. Taoist Master Hao Yun's body was already dried up and weaker than an ordinary person. At this time, the heaven-breaking mallet was only a finger's distance away from the heaven-shaking drum. That was close, seeing the demon-subduing mallet succeed. Everyone was overjoyed. They put away their magic tools and no longer spoke. They took out pills and sat down cross-legged to adjust their breathing. The heaven-shaking drum and the heaven-breaking mallet quietly floated in the air. No one went to collect them. The 3 disciples of the aroma religion were pale, but they seemed to have calmed down. Only Nun Shuezhen was lying on the ground, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. At the Misty School, Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jian had already rescued Wen Wanhai, Lu Yuiming, and Lu Qingyang. At this moment, they were staring coldly at the Righteous Alliance's alliance leader Zhang San, who was shrouded in a cloud of reddish-black smoke. Their eyes were filled with indescribable shock. Not far away, Bai Yinxiu was not affected by the sky-shaking drum because he had taken precautions in advance. He fought alone against Master Longevity and Nun Jingyi, and originally had the upper hand. However, Taoist Master Hao Yun was smashed into meat paste, and the sound of the drum stopped. Bai Yinxiu immediately fell into a disadvantageous position. Seeing that he could not hold on, Bai Yinxiu waved his hand, and a signal flew into the air. He then sneered and said, "You immortal Dao experts are now seriously injured. This sect leader wants to see which martial Dao disciple cut off your heads. You." At this moment, Master Longevity and Nun Jingyi finally realized that under Bai Yinxiu's mountain and river map, There must be many immortal Dao or martial Dao experts on the same level as Liang Cangshu and the others lying in ambush. Now that they were injured, killing dozens of them was not a problem. However, it was impossible to kill hundreds or thousands of them. Seeing the change in Master Longevity and Nun Jingyi's expressions, Bai Yinxiu was very proud. But after waiting for a while, no one came. 1,000 feet was not very far away, and at this time, the sky was already bright. It was almost dawn, and they could already see things 1,000 feet away. What's going on? Bai Yinxiu was very proud and did not find it strange. It was like extreme joy begets sorrow. However, before Bai Yinxiu could turn around to look at the mountain and river map 1,000 feet away, her eyes casually fell on the corpse of Reverend Hao Yu, who was flying close to the ground. At this time, Reverend Hao Yu's head was shattered. It should have been a mess of flesh and blood. The ground where Reverend Hao Yu's body brushed past should also have a trail of blood. However, what Bai Yinxiu saw was a dried-up lump where Reverend Hao Yu's head should have been. She could not see anything. There was not a single trace of blood on the withered grass and snow behind the corpse. Ah? Bai Yinxiu's heart trembled. Her body immediately floated in midair and looked around in horror, as if she had seen a ghost. Reverend Hao Yu's corpse was not far ahead. It should be Reverend Hao Feng. Reverend Hao Feng's chest was cut horizontally by the yin fan wheel. He should have been dripping with blood and looked very bloody. However, at this time, Reverend Hao Feng was lying there diagonally. Beside him, there was already a thick layer of snow, but it was still pure white. It was as if there was no blood at all. Tenryu sect, Bai Yinxiu hysterically screamed in mid-air. At this time, she was extremely convinced by Zhang Xiaohua's words. The Dalan Temple, Chuanxiang sect, Misty School, the Righteous Alliance, and between the clouds and the water were already here. If there was someone who had the strength to spare, if it was not the Tenryu sect, who else could it be? And the disciples between the clouds and the water that she brought with her did not heed her signal to come out. Was there even a need to say the result? Seeing Bai Yinxiu flying in midair in horror and hearing Bai Yinxiu's terrified scream. Although Master Changsheng and Nun Jingyi did not notice the abnormality of the corpse on the snow, their hearts jumped. Before they could ask, they heard a shrill laughter from the mountain map that was 1,000 feet away from Bai Yinxiu. Following that, Sakura, dressed in black and wearing a cloak on his head, appeared from 1,000 feet away with a few people dressed in strange clothes and dozens of ordinary-looking disciples of the Tenryu sect. In the middle of the dozens of disciples was a woman dressed in purple. This woman had big eyes, thick eyebrows, a beauty mark on her left chin, and a dimple on her right cheek. This was the dream that Zhang Xiaohua had been thinking about day and night. Sakura? It's really you. Seeing this, Bai Yinxiu couldn't help but laugh. Beidou School's sect leader Ren said that the trap under Yao Mountain was set up by your Tenryu sect. We didn't believe it and thought that you were already hiding in the Tenryu sect to recuperate. Now, it seems that we have all fallen into your trap. Sakura's figure floated in the air, and he said shrilly, "What? Master Tiangang, Master Yuandao, Master Yuanming, and Nun Shuqing are all seriously injured. If they don't retreat to recuperate, how can I go back?" Then, looking at the corpses on the ground from afar, he stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. He smiled and said, "If I leave, how can this place be lively? How can Yao Mountain be lively?" Seeing Sakura approaching, Bai Yinxiu didn't dare to stay any longer. After weighing the pros and cons, he turned around and flew to Master Changsheng and Nun Jingyi's side. Seeing that Master Changsheng and Nun Jingyi were still confused, Bai Yinxiu pointed to the Righteous Alliance's disciples on the left and reminded them, "Master, can you see if there is any blood under the bodies of the Righteous Alliance's disciples? See if they are the same as the corpses under Yao Mountain." Only then did Master Changsheng and Nun Jingyi understand. With just a glance, they knew that the corpses of those disciples were the same as the dried corpses without blood on Yao Mountain. "Oh, Alliance Master Zhang, you." Seeing the abnormal corpses of the Righteous Alliance's disciples, everyone also saw Alliance Master Zhang San's scarlet flag and the black and red fog around it. When Alliance Master Zhang San saw this, he knew that he couldn't hide the secret, so he smiled and said, This is the immortal cultivation method that Xing Town's Ma family offered to our alliance. Our alliance's cultivation isn't deep enough, so we don't dare to embarrass ourselves in front of everyone. Immortal cultivation method? Master Chang Sheng frowned and looked at Nun Jing-yi. Both of them looked at each other in surprise. Ha ha ha, Sakura, who was far away, seemed to have heard them and shouted, Alliance Master Zhang San, welcome to our Tenryu sect. What immortal cultivation method is this? It is the supreme cultivation method of our Tenryu sect. Nonsense. Alliance Master Zhang San almost jumped up. Your demonic sect's cultivation method. Does it need vitality stones? Who said that demonic sect's cultivation method doesn't need vitality stones? Sakura laughed sharply and took a few steps forward. Sakura, you? How did you know about this place? Master Chang Sheng shouted angrily. This is the inheritance of our immortal Dao ancestor. Ha ha ha, Chang Sheng, oh Chang Sheng, don't forget that your Dalan temple, although it's also a immortal Dao sect, it's different from Fragrance Cult, Misty School, and Shun Dao sect. Your inheritance is different from theirs. Sakura replied. What's more, my Tenryu sect's ancestor Sakura also stayed in this forest before, so why can't my Tenryu sect know about this place? Then, he clapped his hands and said, since your Shondao sect has Situ Ping, why can't my Tenryu sect have Situ Liang? As he said this, a disciple walked out from the crowd. Ah? Situ Liang. You're actually a disciple of the Tenryu sect? Others didn't recognize Situ Liang, but how could Bai Yinxiu, the head of Between the Clouds and the Water, not recognize him? That's right. This disciple is indeed a disciple of the Tenryu sect. By Zhangmin, your Shindao sect's threshold is too high. This disciple can't pass it, so I can only become a disciple of the Tenryu sect. Situ Liang sneered. Bai Yinxiu's face turned green and red. Back then, by chance, Bai Yinxiu met Situ Ping and Situ Liang. She chose Situ Ping to be a disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water and sent him to the evil Tiger Gang to be Wan Jianfeng's spy. She threw Situ Liang to the side, but she never would have thought that Situ Liang was already a disciple of the Tenryu sect. All right, Bai Zhangmin, it's not that I want to scold you, but you've been planning for so long, yet you're so overcautious. You didn't even dare to deal with Openg from the Misty School. If you did it earlier, how would you be in such a predicament today? I have to say, you're speaking to here. He paused for a bit, then continued. You're really too soft-hearted. I was far away in the northwest, but I still received the message sent by Situ Liang. If it wasn't for some unforeseen circumstances, I would have come here personally. Since you didn't participate in the excitement of the secret plane last time, this time, don't disappoint me, okay? Sakura revealed a mocking smile. How can your Tenryu sect meddle in my affairs? What unforeseen circumstances did you have? Don't decline. If your Tenryu sect had come earlier, I wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess Between the Clouds and the Water. Bai Yinxiu also sneered without any trace of politeness. Right now, she was all alone and had already disregarded her own life. So how could she still have any fear towards Sakura? If I have any matters, why would I need to inform you? Sakura said proudly. Looking at Bai Yinxiu, who was Between the Clouds and the Water, as well as Tenryu sect Sakura, Master Chang Sheng and Nun Jingyi were both speechless. That's right, everyone was scheming, but none of them succeeded. -4. Chapter 12:17. After a long while, Master Chang Sheng sighed. He looked at Nun Jing-yi, Alliance Master Zhang San, and Zhang Xiaohu. Then, he looked at Master Tiangang, Master Yuandao, Master Yuanming, and Nun Shuqing, who had yet to recover from their injuries. He took a step forward, put his palms together, and chanted, Umitba, Sakura, you've been plotting for a long time. You just want to find the sheepskin scroll and go deep into the forest to find the inheritance. Just as you said, my Dalan Temple is not a sect founded by the 3 ancestors of the immortal Tao. But since my Dalan Temple has the sheepskin scroll and has the right to enter the secret area, it's not impossible for your Tenryu sect to enter as well. Moreover, The three immortal Tao sects and my Dalan temple may be different from your Tenryu sect, but we haven't had any fierce conflicts for tens of thousands of years. Today, although we're all injured, we may not necessarily lose to your Tenryu sect. This old monk is not talented, but I still want to make a deal with Sakura. When Sakura heard this, he was slightly stunned. With a strange smile on his face, he said, "Master, please speak." Master Chang Sheng repeated the method of sharing the profits that he had told Alliance Master Zhang San just now. Without waiting for Sakura to answer, he turned around and asked Alliance Master Zhang San, "Alliance Master Zhang San, what do you think of this old monk's suggestion?" Alliance Master Zhang San was now alone, and his hatred was mostly added to by Yinqiu between the clouds and the water. Now that the strength of the four immortal Tao sects had been greatly reduced, if they fought with the Tenryu sect again, it would most likely be a lose-lose situation. He himself was very likely to be killed by the Tenryu sect, who in this world was truly unafraid of death. At this moment, Alliance Master Zhang San also gave up the idea of using the sheepskin scroll to threaten Master Changsheng. He only nodded slightly. Great Master's understanding is beyond my expectations. Since that's the case, I won't say anything more. Take out the sheepskin scrolls and let me see if you really have the so-called sheepskin scrolls. I'll see if you really have the qualifications to enter the jungle. Grandmaster Chang Sheng frowned slightly and became cautious. He shook his head and said, "Of course we have sheepskin scrolls. However, you don't seem to have one. What right do you have to look at our sheepskin scrolls?" Ha ha ha. Indra laughed shrilly. According to the records of my Tenryu sect, the method of entering and leaving the forest has already been destroyed. Where did you get the sheepskin scroll? Are you sure that the sheepskin scroll can enter the secret plane? Then, he looked at Situ Ping and said, "If I didn't know that the method to enter and exit the secret area was long gone, how could I not pay attention when Situ Liang reported the mysterious actions of Situ Ping and the others to the Tenryu sect? What? The method to enter and exit the forest has already been destroyed?" Grandmaster Chang Sheng was slightly stunned. He turned his head and looked at Nanjing Yi, then looked at the Misty School. "I used this sheepskin scroll to enter the secret plane personally a few years ago, when Wenhai's injuries had already recovered. He was already able to stand up." He cupped his hands and replied, "Furthermore, I have already told Grandmaster Chang Sheng and the others about what I saw in the secret plane." There really is such a magical sheepskin scroll? Indra's tone was a bit hesitant. Then, he asked, "Can you let me take a look?" "Of course not. Indra, your Tenryu sect is trying to gain something without risking anything. It's better for you to follow behind us. There will be benefits for you guys anyways. Why are you in such a hurry?" Nanjingyi was a bit dissatisfied. However, looking at both sides, she still said calmly, "Hee, is that sheepskin scroll with you guys?" Indra seemed to be worried. He asked casually, "It might not be with me. However, if I don't say it, then no one will know where the sheepskin scroll is. Then, no one will be able to enter the secret plane." Alliance Master Zhang San said quickly. "Really?" Indra laughed. "If that's the case, then that's great." Before he finished speaking, Indra waved the hand hidden in his sleeve. A faint black line that was almost invisible to the naked eye shot towards Alliance Master Zhang San. "How dare you!" A shout came from behind Grandmaster Chang Sheng. It was none other than Grandmaster Tiangang's voice. Along with his voice came the Wheel of Buddha's Radiance. The Dalan Temple's technique was indeed the nemesis of the Heavenly Dragon sect. The Wheel of Buddha's Dharma artifact was also worthy of being the Dalan Temple's famous Dharma artifact. Before the Wheel of Buddha's Dharma artifact could reach Alliance Master Zhang San, the Radiant Dharma artifact had already dispersed the black lines. Indra saw this and his expression changed slightly. He seemed extremely uncomfortable. "Indra, what are you doing?" Grandmaster Chang Sheng was furious. He also raised the Buddha beads in his hand. Hearing Grandmaster Chang Sheng's question, Indra looked up to the sky and laughed. "By Yinqiu from the Shandao sect wants to enter the secret plane with you guys. Do you think my Tenryu sect is the same as her? To tell you the truth, the things in this secret plane, my Tenryu sect doesn't care about them at all. What I want to do today is to destroy this sheepskin scroll. None of your disciples from the 4 immortal Tao sects can enter the secret plane. Everyone was stunned. It turned out that the Tenryu sect was actually planning to destroy the sheepskin scroll. Hehe, I understand. Grandmaster Changsheng laughed. Presumably, in this secret plane, the 3 ancestors of the immortal Tao sects must have left behind a method to restrain the Tenryu sect. Moreover, this method is extremely vicious. Maybe it can even wipe out the descendants of the Tenryu sect. So, Benefactor is hiding nearby and waiting for us to enter the secret plane to destroy the sheepskin scroll? Cut the crap. Indra waved his hand and shouted, "Go! First, kill Zhang San from the Righteous Alliance. Then, capture the people from the Misty School alive. I want to see how your Dalan Temple and incense cult can enter the secret plane without these 2 sects." When Grandmaster Changsheng heard this, he looked at the disciples of the Tenryu sect who were pouncing over like tigers and wolves. He threw his Buddha beads and chanted, "Umitba, Shanzai, Shanzai. Watch how I subdue demons." Old Bald Donkey. Upon seeing this, Sakura stretched out his hand that was hidden in his sleeve. His pale and slender hand was holding a palm-sized magic tool that was shaped like a horse head zither. However, the horse head zither that was commonly seen had strings and a lifelike horse head on top of the zither. However, in Sakura's hand, not only did it not have strings, the horse head was also a horse skull. That zither was even surrounded by a faint black fog. Zhuexian. Grandmaster Changsheng narrowed his eyes and said, "This Zhuexian, I have admired it for a long time. Ha ha ha, old bald donkey, then let Zhuexian have a taste of your heart." Indra laughed shrilly. The horse's head zither suddenly jumped into the air. The faint black fog spread slightly, and an extremely soft sound shot towards Grandmaster Changsheng. "Indra, your opponent is me." Seeing this, Grandmaster Tiangang threw the Wheel of Evolution. The Buddhist magic weapon lingering around the Buddha light flew towards the horse's head zither. "I knew you would make a move. However, do you think I'm afraid of you?" Indra muttered and made a gesture. 3 wisps of black fog separated from the horse's head zither and wrapped around the Wheel of Evolution. Before Indra made his move, he had already ordered his disciples to kill Alliance Master Zhang San and capture the disciples of the Misty School alive. The disciples of the Tenryu sect had already received their leader's order. They waved their weapons and shouted as they rushed towards Alliance Master Zhang San. At this time, Alliance Master Zhang San was surrounded by the disciples of the Incense sect. Peacock and the others had taken the Yuhuandan pill, and their injuries had been suppressed. Nun Shuezhen had also slowly regained consciousness, but she was too injured to get up. Seeing the disciples of the Tenryu sect attacking, Peacock, Chun Chun, and Swift all drew their weapons and went up to meet them. On the right of Alliance Master Zhang San were the disciples of the Misty School. Similarly, when Wan Hai, Lu Yueming, and Lu Qingyang's injuries had also been greatly alleviated. Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jin's bodies were not seriously injured. Seeing the disciples of the Incense sect protecting Alliance Master Zhang San, although they were extremely unhappy, they had to draw their weapons and step forward to meet them. Although the disciples of the Incense sect and the Misty School were injured earlier, they were still first-class experts, especially Peacock, Chen Chen, and Zhang Xiaohu. The weapons in Peacock and Chen Chen's hands were the magical weapons they obtained from the Yaoshan Immortal Abode. Their cultivation levels were still low, and they could not control the flying swords. However, by infusing their vital energy, they were able to force the sword light out by more than 4 feet. It was a terrifying sight. The jade water sword in Zhang Xiaohu's hand was also about 1 foot long, and the sword light rushed out to meet the disciples of the Tenryu sect. With a wave of his sword, the disciple could not dodge in time, and the sword light cut through the copper rod. There was no sound at all, and the copper rod was cut in half. Zhang Xiaohu's swordsmanship changed again, and the sword light pierced towards the disciple's throat from a strange angle. The disciple hurriedly dodged, but when he saw that he was more than 2 feet away from Zhang Xiaohua, the sword light would not be able to pierce him. He subconsciously let down his guard. However, at this time, the sword light that swept past the disciple's throat suddenly increased and became more than 3 feet long. It had slashed through the disciple's throat. The disciple didn't even have time to react before a flash of blood appeared. Blood continued to flow out from his throat, and his body collapsed on the ground. He was dead, and the blood that flowed out slowly seeped into the ground. From where his blood seeped into, strands of black gas appeared from the ground. Zhang Xiaohu's figure did not change. The sword light of the broken water, sword in his hand, swallowed and spat out as he fought with the other disciples of the Tenryu sect. Li Jin and the others did the same. They waved their weapons and fought with Zhang Xiaohu and the disciples of the Tenryu sect. When the remaining heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect saw that Sakura had made his move, they also floated up and took out their magic weapons. They howled and flew towards Master Yuandao and the others. The one flying in front was Maharaga of the Tenryu sect. His hands were empty except for a small whip made of grayish-white bones in his right hand. When he got closer, Maharaga waved his right hand, and the small whip made of white bones transformed into a 2-foot-long whip made of white bones. The whip made an ear-piercing sound that was like the howling of a malicious spirit. It directly pierced one's mind. The whip stirred up a gust of wind and attacked Master Changsheng from all directions. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. -4. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.